clash in Perth. And at the Olympics, South Africa's most decorated Olympian, Tatiana Smith, promises to support the next generation. All the details at around 6:30.
Getting ahead of the morning with #SAfm BreakFast.
Hello, 6:07. You're with SAfm. I'm John Gericke. Good morning to you. It's SAfm Breakfast. We're going to talk sport later on, much later on in the show. Around 9:15 today, we're going to talk about the Olympians. We came back with medals. Athletes came back with medals as well. That's been a while since we got medals in the athletics track. We're going to talk about all of the South African entrants as well. They were Olympians. To be able to say that you're Olympian is a huge achievement. And we look at medals, and that's fantastic. And yeah, well done to all of the medals, the best in the world. But just to be at the Olympic Games is already a massive step. And we're going to talk about funding a little bit in there as well. That was brought up by the sports minister yesterday. That's much later on in the program. But welcome to it. We're going to talk about what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. Thousands are fleeing for safety as Russia's turned water. This is a story we spoke about a couple of days ago. We're going to get an update on the Ukrainian forces that are going into Russia now. Are they setting themselves up for a fall? Russia moving troops around, Ukraine moving troops around. It depends on what you read. So we're going to talk to a professor of strategy at the Faculty of Military Science. We're going to find out if this is a good move by Ukraine, because there is this opportunity, if they're too far into Russia, that Russian troops can just block them off. You're just coming down at the bottom, and then you just block them off, and then you've got Ukrainian troops isolated, and we will find out what that means. Then we'll get our business updates as regular, and because it's Women's Month, we're going to focus on women with the unemployment rates that came out yesterday. More bad news for how many people in South Africa are employed. We're going to focus on a woman's angle on that, because women are still bearing the brunt of joblessness. Of the people who have no jobs, women are the majority there, and we're going to find out why and what solutions can be done. We're going to talk a bigger picture then as well. We're going to find out what can be done policy-wise. What can we do? What strategies can be used for government and in business to be able to create more jobs? We're going to talk to a business school economist at the Northwest University, Raymond Parsons, and try and get a big picture view on strategies, tasks, jobs, things that need to be done so that we can get more people into jobs. Millions of people are sitting without jobs right now. Youth unemployment is massive, and we're going to find out solutions, see what we can do about that. Local government, as you and I know very well, suffering from bureaucratic inefficiencies, lack of resources, widespread corruption, which hinder local government's ability to meet the needs of the community. This is a review or an article by Regent Business School's academic head of the School of Law and Administration, Dr. Daniel Govender. We're going to find out what he has to say, and again, look for solutions. How do we fix those problems? We can moan about them as much as we want, and we can agree on them, and we'll point to some of those inefficiencies and the lack of resources and corruption, but then we will try and find out what can be done about that. You heard with Elvis, and you're going to hear in the news all day today. You're going to hear about it tomorrow and on Friday as well. The new mayor of Johannesburg will be voted on Friday. The old mayor has left. As you heard now, 2026 local government elections just around the corner. We'll get a couple of angles on that. We'll speak to Action SA. They've welcomed the resignation of the mayor, and we're going to find out what plans they have as the ANC have nominated Dada Moreira for mayor. And then we'll talk to the ANC as well and find out why they nominated Moreira to be mayor, and we'll see what Moreira can bring to the city. And can they turn things around? What have we got? 2 years to the next local government elections. As you heard in the news, this could all be planned, strategizing, getting things ready ahead of those elections. There's good news in the sandparks. If you use Table Mountain National Park, sandparks are bringing in more crime-fighting efforts. Table Mountain National Park, you hear about the bad news every now and again, and we'll find out what they're doing there. And there are new smoking laws for South Africa. These were put on the back burner ahead of the elections, and they've back now. It's going to be revived by Parliament for further processing. These are big new laws that are coming in. The packaging will change. The way cigarettes are advertised at point of sale will be changed. It'll include vaping products as well. And I know I've had discussions on this radio station about the vaping groups saying that you shouldn't be putting vaping in the same packaging as cigarettes. It's two completely different products. This all forms part of that. But we will talk to School of Health Systems and Public Health at the University of Pretoria. There's also implications on if you start banning things, you make things illegal, then illicit trade starts happening. Already South Africa losing millions, even billions in illicit cigarette trade, losing money on VAT from cigarettes that could be sold. And so we'll discuss that. And then towards the end of the show, as I said, we're talking sports. What does it take to be an Olympian? How do South Africans get to the Olympic Games? A lot of self-funding. We've heard the hockey team underperformed, but they are not being allowed to compete internationally. So there's plenty to talk about in the show. As always, phone lines are open, 086 000 2032. Love taking your calls throughout the program. And voice notes are up as well. You can give us a voice note on 0614 104 107. Welcome to the show.
SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday.
Oscar and Emmy winner Kevin Costner is John Dutton, a sixth-generation homesteader and devoted father. John controls the largest contiguous ranch in the United States, operating in a corrupt world where politicians are compromised by influential oil and lumber corporations and where land grabs make developers billions. Shifting alliances, unsolved murders, open wounds, and hard-earned respect puts Dutton's property in constant conflict with those it borders, an expanding town, an Indian reservation, and America's first national park. Channel your inner drama with Yellowstone, Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
It's huge, it's massive, it's larger than life. It's SAFm's big 30% off sale. That's right, until midnight tonight. SAFm is giving you a whopping 30% off on all domestic flights for travel between the 15th of August and the 17th of September 2024. Get ready for epic discounts, great savings, and grand adventures. Get to flysafm.co.za and hit the big time with these brilliant low fares. SAFm, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
The Daily News Diary on SAfm.
Eva Chipper, good morning.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Good to hear you in the morning.
Nerves.
It's also very dark outside.
Yeah, no. And cold, actually, quite this morning.
No, you see, I heard a bit of a wind blowing. All right, we're doing weather later on. What's happening in your news diary today?
So quite a lot happening today. We start with 13 accused implicated in the VBA scandal, where over 1.9 billion rand was looted from the bank between 2015 and 2018. They're expected to appear in the High Court in Pretoria today. So the DA and Action SA will protest outside the court against corruption and the misuse of pensioners' savings and municipal funds. In other news, as you mentioned earlier, Al-Jamaa Party leader Ghaniep Hendricks says the resignation by Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Kwamanda was part of a resolution taken at the recent ANC-NEC meeting. So Kwamanda was appointed last year after fellow Al-Jamaa councillor Tapelo Ahmed resigned, and he resigned as mayor due to pressure from coalition partners. So both Hendricks and other political analysts believe that this has to do with the 2026 local government elections. So we will be waiting for a new mayor in the meantime. In other news, 3 siblings who are learners from Everton Primary School have died from suspected poisoning in Sebokeng in the south of Gauteng on Monday. So this after they all were brought to the sick bay at school and mentioned they had eaten pap, milk and biscuits at home. So the learners were in grade 3, 4 and 5 were rushed to a nearby clinic where they were declared dead on scene. In another incident, 2 girls from Zakani Secondary School had ate rat poison on the school premises in Ekurhuleni in the East Rand on the same day. So one of the learners was declared dead on the school premises and the other was rushed to a local medical facility for urgent care and is currently still there. So the Education Department says police are investigating both of the incidents, with the Gauteng Education MEC expected to visit the schools later today.
Terrific stories though. Sure.
Yeah.
What else?
And just 2 more to go. Doctors and nurses have downed tools after 2 armed groups forced entry at the Temba Hospital, and they forced the health professionals to assist their friends who were shot over the weekend. So Naha will be meeting with the hospital management later today, and this is the second incident this year where an armed group have been terrorizing the doctors and nurses at the hospital. And lastly, the inquest into the Enyobeni tragedy continues in the East London Regional Court, which is sitting in Datsane in the Eastern Cape. The inquest is aimed at establishing if any person can be held criminally liable and charged by commission or omission for the death of the 21 patrons at the Enyobeni Tavern at Scenery Park.
Eva Chipper, thanks very much. We'll catch you throughout the morning. Eva Chipper with more headlines coming up on the bottom of the hour. Full news bulletins, 5 or 6 minutes coming up at the top of the hour every hour.
Keeping you informed and ready for the day ahead on #SAfm Breakfast.
All right, let's update you on the weather this morning. Plenty impact warnings again today of orange level 6 warning. Damaging winds and waves resulting in danger in navigation at sea expected between Cape Agulhas and Port Edward. The waves continue through to Thursday morning. Our orange level 6 warning for damaging interior winds resulting in damage to settlements, temporary structures, difficult driving conditions and injuries and danger to life from flying debris along the coast between Plettenberg Bay and Port Alfred. A yellow level 2 warning for damaging winds resulting in localized damage to settlements and temporary structures. That'll be over the eastern and central parts of the Eastern Cape, as well as along the coast in the eastern parts of the province. And a yellow level 3 warning for damaging waves leading to disruption of small harbours and ports, expected between Cape Agulhas and Saldanha Bay, spreading to Alexander Bay by the evening, continuing through to Thursday morning. Also, high fire danger, extremely high fire danger conditions expected over the Vemba, Mopani, parts of Sekhukhune districts in Limpopo, as well as in places over the interior of the Eastern Cape province. Pretoria, Johannesburg and Vereeniging going to be fine today. Pretoria 7 to 22, Joburg 5 to 21, Vereeniging 7 to 20. Mbombela, Polokwane and Mahikeng are going to be fine. Mbombela from 12 to 29, Polokwane fine 12 to 27, Mahikeng 8 to 23. Vryburg, Bloemfontein, Kimberley, Uppington all fine. Vryburg 4 to 21, Bloemfontein 1 to 18, Kimberley 4 to 19, Uppington 4 to 20. Cape Town will be cloudy, isolated showers and rain in the morning. A light southerly to southwesterly wind 10 to 13. George is cloudy, isolated showers and rain in the early morning. A fresh to strong westerly to southwesterly 6 to 13. Gqeberha is cloudy, isolated showers. Gale force to strong gale southwesterly, moderating at night 10 to 16. East London's cloudy this morning, otherwise partly cloudy. A strong to gale force southwesterly wind 14 to 19. Durban is partly cloudy with a moderate to fresh northeasterly 16 to 24. Richards Bay is partly cloudy with a moderate to fresh northeasterly 17 to 26. And Pietermaritzburg today is partly cloudy, a minimum of 9 and a high of 26.
It's Elimination Week on the Tastemaster Junior. This Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2 as the bottom 6 bake to stay in the competition. It's all about desserts as the contestants recreate their versions of a family favorite, warm and comforting pudding. But will it be enough to impress the judges and earn them a spot in the next round? That's the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday at 7. Repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2. Victory in the opening match always sets a good tone, and that's what the Gunners of London are gunning for.
They've almost scored! Kai Havertz! And Arsenal have won it late on.
Meanwhile, the Wolves are on a real mission to howl for 90 minutes in search of essential 3 points.
Wolves have a second! And listen to the noise!
This is the Premier League. Witness the thrilling encounter between Arsenal FC and Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday, 17 August at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
Thousands are fleeing for safety as Russia has turned into war turf. Russian forces have struck back at Ukrainian troops. They've shot missiles, drones. There's been airstrikes as well in actions that one senior commander said halted Ukraine's advance. It's the biggest attack on sovereign Russian territory since the war began. In fact, some say since World War II. Let's find out what this all means with Abel Esterhazy. He's a professor of strategy at the Faculty of Military Science. Abel, good morning. Thanks very much for joining us. We've heard reports about Ukraine into Russia, Russia fighting back. What's the latest you have?
Yeah, I think the Ukraine offensive is slowly but surely running out of offensive, though we've seen them occupying very important points, destroying the gas station at Sudza overnight, which is an important point for gas flowing into the rest of Europe from Russia. But I think it is important that we understand the nature of the operation that Ukraine is busy with at the moment. You know, it's a high-risk mobile operation, and mobile operations, it has a tendency to be spectacular, successful, but it also creates a lot of opportunity for a defensive force to also be spectacular successful. So it's a different kind of operation than what we have seen over the last couple of months in the Donbas region. That is more attrition, that is relying on destruction and not necessarily defeat.
If it's so risky, why is Ukraine doing it?
Well, there's a number of reasons. I think the one is definitely to change the narrative. We have seen a narrative building in the last couple of years or couple of months of Russian success. So I think there's a very important point to be made about the narrative, and the narrative is important for their soldiers, their population, and of course for the Europeans and the West who is supporting it. And then, of course, you know, there's the embarrassment for Putin and the Russians that they are able to do this, that they can occupy a relatively large piece of Russian land that the Russians were not being able to do in Donbas in the last couple of months. Yeah, and you know, we're at day 900 of this Russian offensive. And the war is still ongoing, a war that in Putin's view should have lasted a week. And then, of course, for me, an important point I think one has to think about is the fact that we need to start to think about bargaining chips, because somewhere the two parties will have to start talking with one another, and for Ukraine to occupy part of Russia is giving Ukraine an important bargaining chip when they sit around the table to talk about peace.
What's interesting is this is sort of northeast of Ukraine. The disputed territory with Russia is on the east of Ukraine. Is this being done on purpose as just to show we can get into Russia? But Russia's not even there. They're focusing on the east of the country.
Well, it may be, but you know, this is also typical mobile operations to try and change the front, to try and change the direction of operations. If Ukraine is successful and they can enter and they can sort of start to move towards the south and start cutting off, because we've seen that in many wars in the past where they've made use of mobile operations. Then Russia will have to respond at an operational and strategic level, which we haven't seen from Russia until now, I should say. Russia is trying to respond at a tactical level. They're trying to downplay this at the moment. We haven't really seen the Russians responding at an operational and strategic level. And with that, I mean they haven't really withdrawn forces from the Donbas and other regions to come and try and drive them out of Russia. They're trying to sort of, manage the situation, if I can put it like that. So, there's variety in terms of, and important, the entry of Ukraine into Russia, given the Ukraine's options, and I think this is a very important factor that one has to consider here, that for the first time there's operational options for the Ukraine forces.
According to reports, Western backers, they're not really wanting escalation between Russia and NATO. They say they had no prior warning of this offensive. Do you think that's legit?
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculation, discussion about how the Ukraine have conducted this operation, how they succeeded in creating a situation of surprise, maintaining security, not informing their allies, bolding forces that Russia didn't pick up, and that is saying so much about the Russian operational intelligence, that they couldn't pick up such a large force, because it's a relatively large force that they have bowled up. And the Ukrainians have been successful in the nature that in which they executed this operation with combined arms forces, which is quite interesting. There's of course a lot of speculation about the Russian so-called red lines, which people in the West actually started joking about in a way, because everybody is asking questions about the so-called red lines from Russia, and we've seen Russia talking about red lines if they're getting certain weapons. If they get the F-15s, that's an important red line. And what we've seen here is that Ukraine actually making a mockery, so to speak, of another red line that Russia have set up for Ukraine. Perhaps another very important point that we need to make here is that the Russian invasion of Ukraine had, and it still has, a strategic level objective, and that is occupation. That is not the case with the Ukraine invasion of Russia. The Ukraine invasion of Russia has an operational level, in other words, a lower level objective. And so there's a difference between the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the Ukraine invasion of Russia. They're not at the same level.
Just quickly, as with all wars, civilians are affected a lot. 121,000 have left or are being evacuated from Kursk. What sort of experience are the Russians now experiencing in that area?
Well, this is the sad thing about this whole operation. It's almost as if the Ukrainians have turned this around, because it's now the Russian population that is fleeing. And it is Russia's infrastructure that is now being destroyed. This is a very, very interesting sort of development in this war. And you're quite right. I mean, we have seen the Russians fleeing, and to be honest, I don't think Russia expected this in the way that in some cases they have abandoned the population, in other places not being successful to pull the population out and in front of the Ukraine operation. So this is a quite important operation from the Ukraine side, because of the impact it has on the Russian population. It's an embarrassment for Putin, let's be honest, and it's an embarrassment for his military. And with that, I'm not saying that they will not be able to respond, and that they're probably going to respond in power, but it is a bit of an embarrassment for them.
Abel Esterhazy, thank you very much. Professor of Strategy at the Faculty of Military Science. Brings us to 6:30.
In your news making headlines for this hour, Chief Economist at Ecomatrix, Azar Jameen, says the rise in the unemployment rate is unsurprising given the constrained economic environment of little to no growth. His comments come after data released by Stats SA yesterday revealed that the unemployment rate increased from 32.9% in the first quarter to 33.5% in the second quarter of 2024. In other news, Al Jamaa Party leader Genevieve Hendricks says a resignation by Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Kwamanda was part of the resolution taken at the recent ANC-NEC meeting. And lastly, looking further afield, the US government has stepped up efforts to reach a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. President Joe Biden said such a deal would help to deter Iran from launching attacks on Israel. I'll be back at 7 with more news. For SAfm News, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, very heavy between Durban and Pietermaritzburg this morning. The main problem was the overnight truck fire incident which closed the N3 approaching Pietermaritzburg from Ashburton. Now, that scene has been cleared away at around 5:30 this morning, but there is a number of breakdowns behind this. Couple of trucks just sort of running out of steam in the queue, so you've got some very heavy traffic breakdowns on your way to Pietermaritzburg, around Umlas Road, around Ashburton, and around that Market Road exit in Pietermaritzburg. So you put all that together, there's a queue that literally extends from Cato Ridge side, from Cato Ridge through Camperdown, through Umlas Road, through Linfield Park, through Ashburton, and up to Pietermaritzburg Market Road. Very, very heavy traffic on your way through to PMB this morning. You still may want to travel a bit later. Joburg got a pedestrian or a motorcyclist knocked down in a collision on the R21 North, approaching the R25 Bopsfontein exit. If you're leaving the airport en route towards Pretoria, there's quite a heavy backlog there. And Cape Town, the N2 under pressure with a broken down vehicle near Rappenberg Road. That's pushing a traffic delay right back to the airport, and flooding, left lane closed on the M3 just after UCT towards Woolsack Drive. One lane open, quite heavy on that run in towards Hospital Bend this morning. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Morning, Zai. The Bucks kind of had a home game in Brisbane with all the Springbok fans. Another in Perth. Another home game for the Bucks.
A double header. That's what we love. We are there for our Boks, all right? So is the team. They are behind their coach, Rassie Erasmus, who's made significant changes to the lineup. Despite the absence of some big stars, Erasmus has shown faith in the younger players, including Morne van den Berg and Rowan Dokier. They'll be making their first test starts. Leading the charge will be Salman Murat, who also captained the side against Portugal. Erasmus emphasizing that this is a team picked to win, with a strong bench featuring 14 World Cup winners.
But then everybody else, Jason Colby, Jesse Kirill, Lucanio, Magazzolo, Sasha has played now, Alderich has played now. So and then the bench is all World Cup winning guys. So from the bench we expect to bring some experience and calm heads, and then guys like Fassi and Sasha and Alderich and those guys is to build on their test caps, not just to get more caps, but to feel comfortable at this level.
More rugby. World Rugby announcing that all its 6 regions will have at least one slot in the 2027 World Cup when the field grows by 4 teams to 24. 12 teams have already qualified for Australia after finishing in the top 3 in their groups in the 2023 World Cup in France. There are 6 members. Well, they are members of the 6 nations. The 4 teams in the Southern Hemisphere's Rugby Championship, plus Japan and Fiji. The other places will be determined in 2025. 4 spots will go to the top teams in the second-tier European Championships. Another 3 will go to the top unqualified teams in the Pacific Nations Cup, which is made up of Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, Japan, Canada, and the United States. Cycling, the defending Women's Tour de France champion Demi Vollering won a short, sharp time trial through the streets of Rotterdam yesterday to take the overall leader's yellow jersey from fellow Dutch rider Charlotte Kool, and at the third stage of this year's tour. And Olympic news, Tatiana Smith, South Africa's most decorated Olympian, announcing her retirement from competitive swimming after returning from the Paris Olympics with gold and silver. Although she's stepping away from the pool, Smith is determined to support the next generation of South African swimmers, sharing her experience, helping them avoid the struggles she faced. Welcome home by hundreds of fans, Smith expressed her desire to be a voice for athletes and to continue to their growth. Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie also highlighting Smith's future role in discovering and nurturing new talent as South Africa aims to double its Olympic team for the 2028 Games.
It is a bittersweet pill to swallow that I am finished. This is probably maybe one of the last times I'll be wearing the green and gold. But yeah, just being able to walk out at the end of the Olympics with the flag, just just what it meant of representing our country.
Tatiana is the most decorated Olympian that we have ever produced as a country. That's the context. We have never produced an Olympian that achieved what she's achieved.
More sport on SAfm Breakfast, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The business update on SAfm.
Thank you, Zai. Let's go to business with our business reporter, Ntaoleng Lechela. Good morning to you, Ntaoleng. Home Depot have changed their outlook. What's happening in the States?
Morning, John. That's right. Now, the U.S. home improvement retailer is concerned about the state of the U.S. consumer, and so it slashed its full-year outlook. It says it expects full-year comparable sales to decline by 3 to 4% compared with the prior fiscal year. It had previously expected sales to decline about 1%, but it's now citing high interest rates and consumer uncertainty, which will dampen demand moving forward. In a CNBC interview, Home Depot CFO Richard McPhail said the group has faced a challenging market since mid-2023 as consumers have adopted a deferral mindset due to those rising interest rates. Now, this led to delayed decisions on home purchases, sales, and borrowing for large projects like kitchen renovations. But recent surveys of customers and professionals, such as contractors, reveal an additional concern. McPhail said that for the first time, contractors are reporting that customers are postponing projects not only because of higher financing costs, but also due to growing economic uncertainty.
And Home Choice seems to have done something right.
So Home Choice has successfully pivoted into a fintech player from a homeware retailer. The group's Weaver fintech business that includes insurance products, loans, and payment solution systems like Paychest now has become, really good at just delivering those fintech products, and that business in particular has become the star performer of the overall business. The division now accounts for most of Home Choice's sales, with its legacy home shopping business now accounting for only 5% of total sales. During the interim period, Weaver Fintech generated a 31% jump in both revenue to 1.1 billion and operating profit to 275 million rand. Customers in this part of the business also surged more than 3/4, with the group saying it was benefiting from its own customers spreading the word. Now, the upbeat performance allowed it to reward shareholders, declaring a dividend of 95 cents per share. This reflected a rise of 36%.
And what's happening in the markets this morning?
So risk seems to be back on, with US stocks moving closer to last month's record levels following the first of two key US inflation reports this week. Producer prices growth slowed to 0.1% in July, coming in under expectations and beefing up the case for Fed rate cuts. Over in Asia, the same sort of positive momentum filtered through, those markets trading mixed but mostly higher following the broadly positive cues from Wall Street as recent data from the US boosted equities. It was green across the board in South Africa as well. This despite downbeat unemployment numbers and mining output print. The JSE all share gained 0.5% in yesterday's close. Currency markets also being boosted, with the rand trading stronger on the back of growing bets that the Fed will cut rates next month. It's currently trading at 18.15 to the dollar.
Ntaoleng Lechela, thank you very much. More with her again in an hour's time.
Yeah, we can do this. It's been a long time coming. This deserves to grow. It's a great business. If they don't like it, someone else will. And fund me so I can expand. Maybe I can offer them shares. I need to retain equity for staff. It's going to be good for recruitment. Yeah.
Possible begins with that one great idea. When Telkom enables entrepreneurs to make their ingenuity a reality, we grow local economies. Telkom. Possible begins here.
Victory in the opening match always sets a good tone, and that's what the Gunners of London are gunning for.
They've almost scored! Kai Havertz! And Arsenal have won it later.
Meanwhile, the Wolves are on a real mission to howl for 90 minutes in search of essential 3 points.
Wolves have a second! And listen to the noise!
The This is the Premier League. Witness the thrilling encounter between Arsenal FC and Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday, 17 August at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Are you shopping around for the best car insurance deal in the market? 46-year-old Zanele got a great deal on her car insurance when she called Outsurance. She now pays only 1,313 Rand to insure her white 2023 Audi Q2 1.4T FSI S-Line Stronach. Get an Outsurance quote and see if you could save. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
All right, let's talk about the unemployment figures. They came out yesterday, and one of the facts that jumped out a lot was that women are bearing the brunt of joblessness. It's Women's Month, and there's not very much to celebrate as women continue to grapple with high unemployment and inequality as well. Advocate Brenda Madimuse starts us off with the Director of WISE for Africa and GBV activist. Advocate, good morning to you. Why are South African women bearing the brunt of this still?
Good morning. I think it's not a surprise. I mean, if we look at inequality and equity, that has been a pattern over the many years, and so we have not been able to close that gap, compounded by the fact that you continue to pay them less, right? So it's no surprise when we've been talking about the face of poverty being black women. It's these stats that came out confirms what we've been talking about for the last 20 years or so. And you further look into the sectors that are heavily affected by all of this. Is hospitality, it's the wholesale sector, and if you look at hospitality, it employs mostly women. If you look at hotels and you look at restaurants, and we go back to during COVID, and you get the reports that we received after 2021-22 was that those sectors were the most affected, because that's where most people, when they were downsizing and because they lost jobs and all of that, the first people to bear the brunt of unemployment were domestic workers, gardeners, and all of that. Right. So it's been coming. And I think is going to, if we don't intervene decisively, it's going to get worse.
Advocate, one worrying is that even educated women with tertiary qualifications, where the unemployment rate jumped the most, we're telling girls to get their education, we're telling them to go to school, and yet nothing comes out of it at the end.
Oh yeah, that's very true. I mean, it's debilitating as a country that we're not seeing what is facing us. So we keep on churning. I mean, every year we emphasizing education, and children must go to school. We putting lots of money into tertiary education, and the students come out of that tertiary education. They've got no job prospects, right? None. They've been sitting at home looking for jobs, and you now have young people who have stopped looking for a job because there is absolutely nothing available for them. So, if it's not a crisis for this government, that when you look at the ANC just came out of their Lehotla, and if you look at that statement, it was just a paragraph on unemployment, that what they said. So if they have not centered the job crisis as an issue in employment in this country, and they have to wake up. If they have been sleeping, they have to wake up and realize that we are facing a massive crisis in this country if we don't address unemployment decisively.
Advocate Brenda Madumise. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Early in the morning. Thank you very much. Director of Wise for Africa and a GBV activist as well. Let's stay with us and speak to the Assembly of the Unemployed. Sia Mama is the spokesperson for the Assembly of the Unemployed. Sia, you were listening to the advocate talking there. It's a crisis. The 42.6% really, if you include those not even looking for work anymore. Just how big a crisis is this year?
Yeah, look, it's quite a very scary outlook and face of things, and not to mention how this is in real life and the desperation that many people in South Africa, particularly black people in South Africa, women in general in South Africa, the youth in South Africa is currently facing, and this also talks with the side of society. But then, what now we need to, and this is telling us that we need to overlook now, and we need to stop talking about this. We need to start talking about the expanded definition of unemployment, not the conservative statistics that we often gave with. The expanded definition of unemployment tells us the real picture of what's happening in South Africa. I mean, if you take into account 6 people who stop looking for work that discouraged, they'll take any work should be given to them. So, and we must understand this, and I always say this, we must understand that South Africa has a serious crisis of mass unemployment in the world and amongst emerging economies.
What can be done, Sia? It's we know what the numbers are. How do we turn things around?
Look, as the Assembly of the Unemployed, we've been saying that we need to talk about a situation where there's a serious alternative of reindustrialization. Because what we face right now is a crisis of deindustrialization, and how, investment is financialized, how investment is moved into the financial sector. And does it speak to productive industry, right? And while this is happening, people are looking for jobs, by the way, but there's no work. They're not finding work. So, but what you find instead is that people spend a month, by the way, youth. There's a study on this, that youth spends about over 3,000 a month just to look for work. So even with a clear direction where we should be thinking about an introduction of a permanent basic income grant that's up about poverty line. So these are things that we are talking about, and there is actually money in South Africa to fund many of these alternatives.
What's important is people aren't even looking for work. Is that because they can't afford it, or are they just disgruntled and they've just given up?
Look, people do look for work, but then the mere fact that there's no work in South Africa, it's discouraging. It's discouraging to be receiving spending money every time while there's no actual alternative to find work. And if you look, by the way, at what's happening into the informal sector as well, that actually there are improvements in the informal sector in terms of jobs, and that's where also people are moving to when it comes to generating livelihoods for themselves. So this brings out a clear picture, and this clear picture cannot be done away with. We cannot disabuse ourselves from this clear picture until we change the structure of the economy. And until we change the structure of the economy and how this economy is organized, then we cannot start to fight the crisis of unemployment. Because we have to understand that unemployment, by the way, is a feature of capitalism, is a feature of the neoliberal system that we are faced with right now.
All right, Sia, we have to leave it there. We're going to talk to a business school economist in a minute. That was Sia Mama, spokesperson for the Assembly of the Unemployed. We're going to discuss that growth. We're going to discuss the cost of looking for a job, and is it because of the capitalist society? Raymond Parsons will answer those in a bit.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy traffic on your way from OR Tambo International Airport in Joburg up the R21 towards Pretoria. There's been a collision. We understand it may be fatal between the R23, Benoni exit and the Bopsfontein exit. And there's some road construction in that area as well. So heavy queues. We can already see, I'll tell you how heavy it is, because we can already see motorists coming off at the R23 Benoni exit, the high road, and trying to get through to sort of Whitfield for connections to the alternative route. So very heavy in that area if you're Pretoria bound or Tembisa bound this morning. The Mike 1 already queuing from Ormonde through to Empire Road, the M2 from Benrose through to Crown, looking heavy, and a lot of traffic through Midrand today, Old Joburg Road through to Olifantsfontein, heavy across all lanes. Now, we've been mentioning the enormous backlog on your way to Pietermaritzburg coming out of Durban. There's a couple of stationary trucks, one at Camperdown now, and another before you get to Ashburn. And keep in mind, there was a really big backlog that formed up overnight due to the truck fire incident further up near Market Road. That was all cleared away at 5:30 this morning, and all lanes open there, but just a couple of trucks have sort of conked out in a queue during the road closure. So very heavy from sort of Hammersdale is really where you'll sort of look ahead and see the traffic from Hammersdale up through Camperdown, Cato Ridge, on your way to Umlas Road, and then immediately up through Linfield Park into Ashburton to the final broken down truck. It's all very heavy through there. Queuing pressure towards Umhlanga this morning between Kormashi and Umhlanga. It's a breakdown in the roadworks. If you're on your way to the airport, that's pretty heavy. Cape Town, two standouts. One is a breakdown on the N2 inbound near Rappenberg Road. That's pushing a very heavy N2 back towards the airport. And also, here's one worth avoiding, the M3 this morning. You've got the usual backlog coming in from Constantia up and down Wynberg Hill into Bishop Court and Newlands, but then the traffic stays heavy all the way through to Woolsack Drive, pretty much right through to Hospital Bend, because there's some flooding. The left lane is closed after UCT, one lane open. The traffic is enormous this morning and worth avoiding between Constantia and Hospital Bend. Stay off that to M3. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Another day, another set of challenges. In a world driven by shifting demands, environment, social and governance, what guides your decision-making? We need a new generation of ethical leaders who have their eye on the bigger picture, who are not daunted by change, but inspired by it. Let this business school guide your leadership journey. With our postgraduate programs, you can play a role in Africa's sustainable future. Apply today and make 2025 your year of impact. Visit wbs.ac.za for more.
What's the big deal? Well, if you like holidays, fun, and a whole lot of savings, then you'll be happy to know that SAFm's big 30% off sale is now on. It'll be running until midnight tonight. That's 30% off on all domestic flights for travel between the 15th of August and the 17th of September 2024. So if you haven't done so yet, get to flysafare.co.za and start planning your great escape now. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAfm. Leading the conversation.
Continue our talk about the unemployment numbers that came out yesterday. Raymond Parsons is a business school economist at the Northwest University. Raymond, good morning to you. Little to no growth, women losing jobs because of closing of sectors. What can we do to fix this?
Yes, good morning to you. Well, I think we must accept the bad news. It's a snapshot picture of the second quarter, and we mustn't be surprised that unemployment has worsened. If you give our track record over the past few months of poor growth and really poor economic data. So that mustn't be a surprise. That is the bad news. I think that the good news is on the positive aspect if we look ahead. Firstly, there are a number of economic indicators and surveys that are pointing towards higher economic activity in the second half of the year. So there appear to be some tailwinds developing, both politically and economically in South Africa, to push our economy forward and upward. And secondly, of course, the government of national unity is committed to inclusive job-rich growth as its core priority, and all policies are revolving around that now. So that means the phasing out of load shedding, high infrastructural spending, skills development, and all the other important things that are aimed at job creation. At the same time, I must caution, it's still early days to see any results. And then thirdly, there is a recognition that we need to build the economy, we need to get job-rich growth by expediting the structural economic reforms that are overdue, but in conjunction with the private sector. And I'm very pleased to see also that a part of what we need to do urgently is to give a high priority to the role of small and medium business as being at the core of a growth strategy and job creation. So yes, the snapshot picture doesn't look good, but the moving picture looks better.
We just heard from the Assembly of the Unemployed. They say we need reindustrialization. Will that work?
Well, that's part of it. It all depends what form. Remember, we're in a highly competitive world, and we mustn't resort to old-fashioned ideas. We've got to develop an industrial strategy which is geared to a geopolitical and changing global economy that keeps us competitive. Already, of course, remember, we've had big problems trying to get even our existing exports out of the ports and into the markets. So let's tackle those problems, solve them, but at the same time ask ourselves what sort of industrial strategy, what sort of industrial policy will best serve us being both competitive and job creation. And I think that's a very important dimension of the bigger picture that we need to move towards as we move through the next couple of years.
Raymond, there was a figure of 3,000 Rand a month is spent by people just looking for a job. Would a grant to help that, would that help the employment figures?
Look, I think we've got to think outside the box. So clearly, we want people to be able to access jobs. There are difficulties in being able to locate what are the best opportunities. And if we can oil the wheels of the labor market, because there are some structural issues in the labor market that need to be addressed, not just getting the economy moving faster and quicker. There are some structural aspects that need to be addressed, and in any way that we can sensibly oil the wheels of making the labor market work.
I think is that the end of Raymond? All right, we seem to have lost Raymond Parsons, business school economist at the Northwest University. Thank you very much. Let's get your solutions. What solutions do you have for the unemployment crisis, as you heard Advocate Brenda Madimise say a little earlier on from Wise for Africa and GBV activist? It's a crisis. How do we solve it? Let us know. 086 000 2032. You can also send us a WhatsApp voice note on 0614 104 107. Coming up in a little while, local government in South Africa suffering from challenges, as we know, bureaucratic inefficiencies, lack of resources, widespread corruption. We will talk to Dr. Daniel Govender, who has some solutions for that, and how does the community get involved. Then Action SA and ANC will be talking to us about the new mayor, the mayor's resignation, and the new mayor of Johannesburg. And then later on in the show, we're talking sports. Let's celebrate the Olympians that have come back from Paris. Also, how do we improve our medal count next time around? You're with SAfm at 7 o'clock. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
Top stories for this hour. 13 VBS accused set to appear in court today, and DA calls for investigations into the death of 4 learners. Good morning, I'm Eva Chipa. 13 accused implicated in the VBS scandal, where over 1.9 billion rand was looted from the bank between 2015 and 2018, are expected to appear in the High Court in Pretoria today. The DA and Action SA will protest outside the court against corruption and the misuse of pensioners' savings and municipal funds. Nonhlanhla Njingila reports.
The group of 13 are implicated in what's been described as the Grand Bank heist. All face 180 charges, including racketing and corruption. Alleged kingpin CO Chifiwa Madodzi pleaded guilty to 33 counts for pocketing over 300 million by creating fake credit in the bank account. Nonhlanhla Njingela for SABC News, Pretoria.
Chief economist at Econometrics, Azar Germain, says the rise in the unemployment rate is unsurprising given the constrained economic environment of little to no growth. His comments come after data released by Stats SA yesterday revealed that the unemployment rate increased from 32.9% in the first quarter to 33.5% in the second quarter of 2024. The data shows that there was a decrease of 92,000 employed persons to reach 16.7 million, while the number of unemployed persons increased by 158,000 to 4.4 million compared to the first quarter. Jermaine elaborates.
It's not surprising. It's a reflection of the continued lackluster nature of the South African economy and the fact that we are seeing far more people entering the job market than the economy is able to grow. And as a result, we're seeing a rise in the unemployment rate. We saw it particularly harshly in the informal employment. Unemployment rates ought to carry on rising until such time as the economy's growth rate picks up to the extent that the labour force is increasing.
Al-Jama Party leader Ghanief Hendricks says the resignation by Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Kwamanda was part of the resolution taken at the recent ANC-NEC meeting. Hendricks says the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa had given an instruction that the matter of having ANC mayors in municipalities where the ANC has majority be finalized. Kwamanda was appointed last year after fellow Al-Jama councillor Tapelo Ahmad resigned as mayor due to pressure from coalition partners. Hendricks explains.
The NEC of the ANC had a meeting this week, and one of the decisions was that they're going to reconfigure the municipalities in Gauteng, and the president gave a direct instruction that matters be finalized by Friday. So we then felt that the president has in mind the 2026-27 elections. He wants to win back the seats that they lost in the municipalities in Gauteng.
In other news, the DA in Gauteng is calling for a swift investigation into the deaths of 4 learners in separate incidents this week. On Monday, 3 siblings from Everton Primary School in Sebokeng died at school after allegedly consuming pap milk and biscuits at home despite receiving immediate medical attention. In a separate incident, 2 grade 8 learners from Tsakane Secondary School east of Johannesburg ingested rat poison on school premises, resulting in 1 death of a learner and the other being hospitalized. DA Gauteng spokesperson for education, Sergio Dos Santos.
The Democratic Alliance extends our condolences to the affected families involving 3 learners from Everton Primary School and 1 learner from Tsakane Secondary School. We call a thorough and urgent investigation into the deaths of the learners. The DA will conduct oversight inspections, visit the families, and question the MEC of Education, Matume Cholwane, on the circumstances surrounding these tragic events.
President Cyril Ramaphosa is leading the call to men across South Africa to take a stand against gender-based violence and femicide by signing a virtual pledge at www.stateofthenation.gov.za/endgbvf. The President launched the call to action by signing the pledge alongside men from all sectors of society in Pofadder in the Northern Cape on Women's Day last Friday. The pledge commits men to be part of the solution by maintaining positive behavior, taking responsibility for their actions, and respecting the rights of women. And looking further afield, the US government has stepped up efforts to reach a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. President Joe Biden said such a deal will help deter Iran from launching attacks on Israel. The BBC's David Willis has more.
The United States believes a ceasefire deal in Gaza could avert the possibility of a retaliatory strike by Iran and thereby prevent the prospect of a wider war in the Middle East. Speaking to reporters during a visit to New Orleans, President Biden conceded the negotiations were getting hard, as he put it. A call from America's ambassador to turn down the temperature in the region was met with a demand from the Palestinian ambassador for sanctions on Israel and claims by Israel that Hamas was using civilians as human targets.
Recapping the top story for this hour, 13 accused implicated in the VBS scandal, where over 1.9 billion rand was looted from the bank between 2015 and 2018, are expected to appear in the High Court in Pretoria today. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour for SAfm News. I'm Eva Chipa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today. SMS CAR to 43187. Your own panel beater is like your loyal childhood friend. Been there through it all. You trust them. Outsurance gets it. That's why Outsurance Essential, your claim is paid in cash to use your own panel beater. Also, get up to 1 million rand liability cover and other great benefits at a low cost. Outsurance Essential is priced for cars older than 5 years, valued under 125,000 rand and not financed. SMS CAR to 43187 or call 08 600 60,000 today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Crash in Midrand or the M1 South at Olifantsfontein Road this morning. That's the reason for the heavy backlog all the way back into Brockfontein interchange. That's a really busy start this Wednesday morning. The side roads already filling up as you either queue on Samrand and Olifants to get into the highway, or you queue on the alternative Old Joburg Road running parallel to the highway. Fatal crash just north of the airport on your way to Pretoria before the Bupsfontein exit on the R21 North. That stays quite heavy, and the alternative ramp off at the R23 Benoni exit to High Road to get into Whitfield, very heavy with motorists avoiding the queue on the R21. Two breakdowns still with us on your way to Pietermaritzburg, one at Umlast Road, another before Ashburton, very heavy. That traffic remains solid from Cato Ridge this morning. In Cape Town, avoid the M3, flooding before Hospital Bend, one lane open, major delays coming in from Constantia. You've got plenty of options. You've got Rossmead Avenue, you've got Main Road, you've got the M5, you've got tons of options. Just stay off that M3 inbound to Hospital Bend. It's super heavy. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm sports headlines, it's cricket. Proteas batter Tony de Zorzi, who shone in the first test against the West Indies, wants to keep the Proteas steady in their second test starting tomorrow. And in a UFC showdown, Dricus du Plessis, he is gearing up for his title defense against Israel Adesanya with Springbok power by his side. All the details at around 8:30.
Getting ahead of the morning with hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
9 minutes past 7, you with SAfm Breakfast. I'm John Gericke. It is a Wednesday. Coming up in a moment, we're going to talk about the change of mayors in Johannesburg. Kabelo Gwamanda deciding to resign. When was that? Yesterday. And now plenty discussions we're seeing in the back rooms. The ANC putting up their candidate. We're going to hear from Action SA that have welcomed the resignation of Gwamanda, and we're going to hear what plans they have for the ANC-nominated Dada Morero for mayor. And then we'll also talk to the ANC as well and find out what they think of the resignation and why they're putting Dada Morero forward. Later on in the program, we will talk about sand parks. They're going to bolster crime fighting efforts on the Table Mountain National Park. That can only be a good thing. And the new smoking laws for South Africa are back in Parliament. They lapsed towards the end of the last administration. That's back now after the elections. We'll talk about what those laws are. All of that and more coming up soon.
Oscar and Emmy winner Kevin Costner is John Dutton, a sixth-generation homesteader and devoted father. John controls the largest contiguous ranch in the United States, operating in a corrupt world where politicians are compromised by influential oil and lumber corporations and where land grabs make developers billions. Shifting alliances, unsolved murders, open wounds, and hard-earned respect puts Dutton's property in constant conflict with those it borders, an expanding town, an Indian reservation, and America's first national park. Channel your inner drama with Yellowstone, Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
S3. 18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
It's huge, it's massive, it's larger than life. It's SAFm's big 30% off sale. That's right, until midnight tonight, SAFm is giving you a whopping 30% off on all domestic flights for travel between the 15th of August and the 17th of September 2024. Get ready for epic discounts, great savings and grand adventures. Go to flysafm.co.za and hit the big time with these brilliant low fares. SAFm, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
You are listening to John Gericka on SAfm.
Let's talk about the new mayor in Johannesburg. Kabelo Gwamanda deciding to resign yesterday, and the ANC have put forward Joburg Finance Minister Joburg Finance MMC Dada Morero has been nominated as the mayor of Johannesburg. Sasabona Mangwanye is the regional secretary of the ANC at the city of Johannesburg. Sasabona, good morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us. First of all, what do you think of Kabelo Gwamanda resigning?
Good morning, John, and good morning to your listeners. Of course, the resignation of the executive mayor Gwamanda is informed by our engagement, which seeks to reconfigure the coalition in Johannesburg, which we have always called it the government of local unity. Of course, in 2023, when we elected a minority mayor, it was informed by the fact that our coalition arrangement at that point did not favor us in forwarding a candidate from the ANC due to our differences with the EFF. And that hence you had a mayor that comes from the minority party. We have been trying to engage different parties until post-provincial and national elections, which then presented a new dynamic that made it easier for the parties to agree that it makes sense for the ANC as the party with more councillors to take a leadership role in the city of Johannesburg. And that is why Councillor Gwamanda then had to resign, so that we allow the party with the majority of seats to be the one that takes a lead.
Was that resignation forced on him by the ANC?
Come again?
Was his resignation forced on him by the ANC?
No, the resignation was not forced on him. It's a resignation that is informed by the reconfiguration of the coalition that Al Jama is part of.
Right.
And hence there were no challenges in terms of himself resigning. We didn't have to do a lot of convincing, because we are all partners within the same coalition, and we have that understanding that the ANC from the inception should have forwarded a mayoral candidate. Unfortunately, the situation at that particular point did not favor the ANC.
Who is the current coalition that will be voting for the Finance MMC as mayor?
So we currently have a coalition of 13 parties. In those 13 parties, just to be specific, you have got the ANC with 90 councillors, the EFF 29, the Patriotic Alliance with 9, Al Jama 3, AIC 2, PAC 1, GOAT, UDM, APC, HC, ATM, and COPE, all of them 1-1, including IFP with 7 councillors. These are 13 parties, which makes around 147 councillors out of 270. You also have Action SA with 44 councillors, of which we are in the engagement with the Action SA, which we believe those engagements will also lead to HNSA voting with us, which will take us to above 190 councillors out of 270. So basically, we are confident that we should be able to successfully vote in Councillor Dada Morero as the executive mayor.
It's a very different coalition from the national coalition. Why is that?
Nationally, you don't have a coalition. Locally, it's a coalition. So nationally, you will understand that is the government of national unity with different parties. So you have a coalition nationally. I mean, locally. With us, it's a coalition. It's just that we have long called it government of local unity without knowing there will be government of national unity again.
What will current Finance Minister Dada Morero bring to the city of Joburg? What will be done differently and leading up to local elections, which we know just 2 years away?
Yeah, look, the MMC of Finance, it's one person who has an experience in terms of local government. That is why, even in his appointment as an MMC of Finance, he was able to, fit to the responsibility, because of the experience that he has, not only the fact that, he's also a person that is committed to academics, but he's also a person that have also managed, remember in the ANC when you are the secretary, you are the one who holds our deployees accountable, and he was the regional secretary who was at the helm of ensuring that, the previous administration of the ANC under the Mayor Pakstow, he was the secretary holding the deployees accountable. And you will know the ANC, the city of Johannesburg, has been doing very well under the Mayor Pakstow. That is why even many of us got shocked when we lost elections, when the city was in a good health.
But Sasabona, if you look now, Joburg's finances are atrocious, and he's the finance MMC.
No, that's correct. If you remember, these are the finances that we found in shambles under the DA. When we removed the DA, they were even struggling to raise a loan so that they can pay service providers. Cars were getting grounded. There was no service delivery at all, and it is when he took over as the MMC of Finance where there are signs of improvement that are there, even in terms of revenue collection. It is not at a stage where we will say that we are happy, but there are improvement, and that demonstrated that we have appointed somebody who understands what he's doing.
All right, well, time will tell. Thank you very much to Sasabona Manganye. He is the Regional Secretary of the ANC, the City of Johannesburg. ANC putting forward current Joburg Finance MMC Dada Morero. Will he be the new mayor? It looks like they've got all the votes. Will it bring a change to the city? Time will tell. It's 19 minutes past 7.
From 1936 to the future, from Ekaya, Ekasi, to Chosi and Furkan to the world, from dance and poetry to stages filled with our hopes and dreams, from SABC radio stations to cross-border triumphs, from drama, comedy and heart-pounding sport to raise our flag, from culture and spirit to the streets where talent is grown, from generation to generations and the shows that kept us entertained. So, what are you waiting for? Kumbule Kaya. SABC has always been home to our joy, stories, and Msanti's magic. Come home to SABC Plus, still home to the best of who we are.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAfm.
It's 21 minutes past 7. You're with SAfm Breakfast. I'm John Gericke. Good morning. I lived in Cape Town for 2 or 3 years, long time ago, and I didn't use the national park, the Table Mountain National Park, enough. In hindsight, I regret never going for hikes there and going for walks and seeing what it's like. And if you follow the wrong groups, all you see is the crime there, the amount of people that are being held up by criminals on the mountains, and apparently Sandparks is doing something about that. Head of Communications and spokesperson at Sandparks is Mr. JP Lowe. JP, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. You're going to be putting in more efforts to fight crime on Table Mountain.
Thank you, John, and really thank you for having us. Good morning to you as well. Yes, indeed. Look, we apply a multi-pronged approach to how we're dealing with this issue of safety on Table Mountain National Park. On the one hand, there is this whole effort now underway where we are looking at the appointment of additional foot on the ground, our rangers, both rangers as you would know them, and also we have a specialized team we call the SIM team, which is really a collective that is responsible. It's the CA Mountain basically team, a specialized crime prevention team, and also are looking at employing support staff, our administration staff as well, so that our rangers can be freed up to focus primarily on their role in the area of conservation, tourism safety as well. And also, of course, we work with other parties as well. We work with the police, we work with the Cape Town Metro, we work with community safety groups, and already we've had a number of very positive stories as well in this respect. And I must say that when we just look at our numbers, around times such as August 2023, for example, we had about 13 robberies. But now this year, we're at a single-digit numbers. I mean, in April 1, March 1, February 2, and that sort of thing. So we're quite convinced that the type of approaches we're being applying is giving us the fruits that we want.
How many new rangers will you be recruiting?
It's a very tricky question because the selection process is very, very rigorous, right? Both for the SIM team and the Rangers. So we may start with a process where about 1,000 people apply, and then in that selection process, you only end up with 100 or 15, 25. So it's a bit difficult at this point where we are busy with the selection process to pin down a number, But we certainly are hoping that for both the SIM team as well as with the Rangers, we will not go beyond the numbers of about 20 as well. But so I can unfortunately not give you a specific number. It's safe to say to you that
there will be
when we have selected, you can be sure that those people have been selected through a very, very rigorous process.
It's this fine balance, I'm sure, that you have to balance between having an open park and not having policemen or rangers following you around when you're out in the wilderness.
Of course. I mean, we're very proud of the fact that Table Mountain is an open access park. Other people say that it's a national park in a city. Others even say what you have is a city in a national park. Because remember, Table Mountain National Park starts from Signal Hill and goes all the way down to Cape Point. It's not just the mountain. It's just the mountain and a whole lot of the land you have up to there. And many of the people who are there really have a very emotive relationship with the park. They see it as their own, and we certainly encourage that very much. So, yes, it's quite difficult because as being an open access park, it means that there's no fencing. And also what tends to happen as well is that somebody might commit then a crime in the city and then run into the park, right? And that's why we have this collaboration, for example, with the city and the police, and also with community groups, so that wherever you try to go as committing crimes, you will still be on our tail. I mean, we have an operational center, for example, with cameras based all over the park. The city does the same. So we share all that sort of like intelligence with each other and are able to coordinate quite closely. So it is tough, yes, but I would also argue that we're quite up to the task.
Andy Davies of Friends of Table Mountain is asking for the Rangers to do more, also not just patrol, but also be trail maintenance, some alien vegetation removal, and just be tour guides, I guess, visitor assistants. So is that what these new people will be doing as well?
No, but some of these things are what Rangers do, but other things also, like I say, we're employing additional staff, and that staff is intended to free the Rangers from focusing on their work.
Right.
You know, when I say Rangers assist, for example, with conservation services, when we have controlled burns in our parks, it's really across the whole country, you would also find Rangers getting involved in assisting with that as well. You would have floods as well, for example, and we're busy repairing areas that are damaged. You have Rangers also coming on board to give a hand as well. So the Rangers really do quite a lot of work, at times even assisting with environmental education support. So the duty of a Ranger isn't just about carrying a gun, if you like, but I mean there are also all these other things they do. Other people would even say to a Ranger is actually a conservation officer as well, is another term you could use when you reference them.
Are they empowered to make arrests?
Of course, in the park itself, when you do wrong, they are the ones that you would do, that will deal with you. Let me reference to a different park, just for sake of definition. I mean, in a place like Kruger National Park, there are speed limits. When you exceed the speed limit, it is the ranger who would give you the fine, you know, that you will be compelled to pay, and then it will go through the normal process. But of course, we don't have, in a place like Table Mountain National Park, jails and the like. So if a ranger apprehends you, we then go to our partner, the South African police, and hand you over there, and the case gets open, and you follow the usual judicial process of being held accountable for whatever you've done.
JP, you've used Sea Air Mountain Seam a few times. Where does the sea come in here?
We have what's called marine protected areas that you are responsible for as sun parks. A part of the area, for example, around Robben Island is part of the Table Mountain National Park in its fullness. So that's really where the issue of the sea, the water comes in as well. In other places, even like the Garden Road National Park in the Knysna section of that park, we're also responsible, for example, for the estuary. So the role of sun parks isn't just on land. You know, we have a responsibility also for what's called marine protected areas. You know, Titikama, for example, is another marine protected area I could refer you to. So in the Table Mountain National Park case specifically, that's why you have a sea and mountain team, specialized team, that is.
JP Lowe, thank you very much. SANParks Head of Communications and spokesperson as well. Hopefully that'll make a difference for you if you use Table Mountain National Park. Let us know any experiences you've had on there. Do you enjoy it? I do regret not having used my mountain bike up at what's the Silver place? I forget what it's called. It just goes to show. I should have hiked. I should have walked. I've never walked up the mountain to the cable car and taken the cable car down. I'm lazy. I go when it's free on my birthday. You're with SAfm. Coming up in a moment, the new smoking laws for South Africa back in front of Parliament. That's after it was sort of put on the back burner at the end of the previous administration. Then we'll get an update on the market. Sport with Zai coming up in a bit, and then we're going to talk sport. We unpack Team South Africa's performance at the Olympic Games. Freudian slip, unperformance. We'll talk to Michael Abramson later on and find out what it takes to get to the Olympic Games as a South African. It's 7:30.
In your news making headlines for this hour, The ANC in Johannesburg says it's still in coalition negotiations with Action SA. This follows the announcement that regional chairperson and current finance MMC Tata Morero will be put forward for the position of executive mayor of Johannesburg this week. In other news, 13 accused implicated in the VBS scandal, where over 1.9 billion rand was looted from the bank between 2015 and 2018, are expected to appear in the High Court in Pretoria today. The DA and Action SA say they will protest outside the court against corruption and the misuse of pensioners' savings and municipal funds. And lastly, retired police cell phone data analyst Lambatra Steyn is expected back on the witness stand in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. I'll be back with more news at the top of the hour. For SAfm News, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Things change quickly in the traffic. It was quite a busy morning now in Joburg. A collision scene just past Houghton Drive in the Killarney area. So that's a joined up queue that extends back through the sort of daily grind from Boyson. So Boyson's through a point just up by Houghton Drive. Very heavy on your way through to Santon. That's going to keep the pressure on the M2 coming through from Benrose into Crown to join the Mike 1. Also crash N3 North before Marlborough Drive. So again, that's a queue that sort of joins up from the daily sort of backlog from Elon's interchange through to Galuli's. You then stay in that traffic from Galuli's up through Edenvale all the way through to Marlborough Drive. The crash on the southbound side as well. So from Marlborough Drive down to London Road, that's pretty heavy. So big backlogs on the N3, but particularly northbound. Also crash on the R21 before the Bopsfontein exit, causing delays coming out of the airport towards Pretoria. Earlier crash on the M1 South at Olifantsfontein's pushed traffic back into Brockfontein interchange. And the N1 South out of Pretoria is quite slow this morning from Grasfontein down to the sinkhole works area near the R21. No real change. Durban through to Pietermaritzburg. A couple of breakdowns on that route. One just Umlas Road, another before Ashburton. There's a really big queue from Camperdown all the way effectively to Ashburton. A breakdown before the Mshlanga exit. The N2 north through the roadworks backs now to Queen Nandi Drive. That's pretty heavily back. And Cape Town, you've got this major delay to worry about if you use the M3 inbound from the south, flooding just past UCT before you get to Hospital Bend, one lane open, and the traffic's all the way back heavily right through to Constantia. Some of those alternative routes like Main Road and the M5 noticeably busier with diverting volumes as well. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Morning, Zai. Some cricket news for us. Going to sit and watch some Test cricket from tomorrow night.
Tomorrow, 4 p.m. And we've got Tony de Zorzi cooking up runs. I think they're just getting started with him. In his fifth Test match, de Zorzi impressed with scores of 78 and 45, showcasing an ability to adapt and perform under pressure, and especially his partnership with Aidan Markram laying a solid foundation in that first Test against the West Indies, which the Proteas drew. Now, Zorzi has become a key player for the Proteas. All eyes will be on him tomorrow. Let's go to the Springbok team. They're set to take on the Wallabies in Perth this weekend, with coach Rassie Erasmus making significant changes to the lineup. Despite the absence of some big name stars, Erasmus has shown faith in the younger players, including Morne van den Berg and Ruan Nokia, who will be making their first Test starts. Leading the charge will be Salman Murat, who also captained the side against Portugal. And this team that was picked will feature a strong bench featuring 14 World Cup winners. South African UFC middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis is ready for the fight of his life this weekend as he defends his title against Israel Adesanya at UFC 305 in Perth. Adding to that excitement, du Plessis will be accompanied to the octagon by Springbok captain Siya Kolisi and Locke Eben Etzebeth. The Boks, who played the Wallabies the day before, will be in full support as du Plessis takes on his biggest rival, Adesanya. Golf news. Valhalla Golf Club in Louisville, Kentucky will host the 2028 Solheim Cup. It will be the first major women's competition held at Valhalla, which has staged 4 PGA championships and the 2008 Ryder Cup. Olympic news. South Africa's most decorated Olympian and gold medalists from the recent 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, Tatiana Smith, is ready to take up an advisory role to unearth more talent now that she's retired. In back-to-back Olympic Games, Smith has returned with 4 medals, 2 golds, 2 silver and is the only South African athlete to achieve gold in both. She has been in the sport for 22 years and in this period has seen a number of promising swimmers who couldn't make it due to a lack of resources.
I do think that we lose a lot of, in terms of swimming, we lose a lot of people in that gap. So there's always a massive gap where we fall short, and I think it does obviously come from a financial side. Sport is expensive, and the living cost is expensive. So you really have to have that backing as well to be able to get to places where you can get to those experiences, to be able to go to international level and race there. We can't be on a local level and then all of a sudden perform at international level, but it's
South African...
Whose phone was that? Did you see that press conference? Was it hers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, South African athlete, teen sensation and Olympic silver medalist Bayanda Walaza has listed his teammate and Mzansi sprint king Akani Simbine as his biggest inspiration and the man who motivated him a lot at the recent Olympic Games in Paris. Walaza, at the age of 18, was the youngest member of the 4x100 meter relay team that won the silver medal in Paris last Friday, anchored by Simbine. Walaza received a hero's welcome at OR Tambo International Airport yesterday. The 18-year-old is a matriculant at Kuro Hazeldale High School, says he was also inspired by the reigning and record 4 times world rugby champions, the Springboks.
The motivation that pushed me, I'll start from the Springboks, the rugby soccer, the rugby people, like those guys that they're putting us there on top, and they're carrying the whole nation. I don't want to lie, those people are tops. So also that pushes us to also, let's not put rugby top only. Also, let's try also us as athletes to build that confidence just like the rugby players and be same as them, so that the country will be even much more stronger.
That's a wrap of your sport on SAfm Breakfast. More top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The business update on SAfm.
Good morning again to Ntaoleng Lechela, our business reporter. Ntaoleng, Development Bank is downbeat. That's worrying.
That's right. So the Development Bank of Southern Africa has reported an 11% decline in annual earnings, this largely due to lower foreign currency gains. Now, the group provides loans in US dollars and euros to support projects outside of South Africa. Due to the rand depreciation during the period, the DBSA recorded foreign currency exchange rate gains of 128 million rand, a significant decrease from the 860 million rand gained in the previous year. Now, zooming in on those numbers, net interest income increased 18%, while the return on equity on net profit decreased to 9.3%. This was due to lower levels of profitability and an increased equity base. Despite this, DBSA was pleased with its performance, saying its balance sheet remained resilient. And moving ahead, the lender said it would continue to prioritize funding for infrastructure projects within Southern Africa.
And Santam looking good though.
Yes, so the short-term insurer forecast an earnings jump of as much as 45%. This was boosted by better underwriting results in conventional insurance and strong growth in alternative risk transfer businesses. Now, analysts were quite surprised about the numbers, as many thought the increased harsh weather conditions in the country would weigh on the company's bottom line. Santam, however, has faced increasing insurance costs, prompting the company to assume more risks, including losses from severe local weather conditions. According to the company's CEO, Tavaziva Matsinga, extreme weather events highlight the escalating impact of climate change, resulting in record-breaking claims and a growing gap in risk protection. Now, the global insurance industry is still reeling from the COVID-19 pandemic and continues to struggle with volatility fueled by geopolitical tensions as well as those weather conditions. Now, Matsinga also said that the current global issues that the insurance sector have been facing will forever just alter the insurance business. So they are seeking alternative ways to, assume more risks without pressurizing consumers down the line.
And what's happening in the market so far today?
So sentiment pretty upbeat after hopes for a Fed interest rate cut next month were boosted by data showing US wholesale prices rose less than forecast last month. Asian markets trading pretty mixed, with traders digesting that print as well as eyeing news out from the political front in Japan. We've had Japanese Prime Minister saying he would not seek re-election as his party's leader next month, bringing an end to his premiership. Now, taking a closer look at those markets, the Japanese Nikkei is down 0.16%, while China's Shanghai index shifted a bit, trading even lower, down 0.45%. Over in Wall Street, futures are in the green, pretty flat, ahead of the consumer prices print, which is out later today. Back at home, markets are shrugging off yesterday's local downbeat economic prints, with the JC All-Share closing the day 0.5% higher. The rand also trading in positive territory. It's currently trading stronger against the US dollar at 18.12.
Tauling Lachela, thank you very much. More business in an hour's time.
Our brand new Miss South Africa 2024 is Mia!
Have you not always accepted, or rather have you not always been comfortable with being a beautiful girl? I mean, you are strikingly beautiful. I know it has nothing to do with you. Mom and Dad are listening, so they get all the credits. You are a strikingly beautiful girl.
Thank you so much. I actually, when I grew up, I did experience bullying. I was an emotional eater. I got overweight, so I have not always felt beautiful. I did have a very tough time during school and like primary school with feeling beautiful. Like I felt very unworthy. I felt very ugly. And there is this line that I love that says, I know my worth, because I have felt my unworthiness.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
Africa Update on SAfm.
Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning to you. Let's start in Zimbabwe. Some good news with peace in the country.
A refreshing morning, John, and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Indeed, yesterday it was the Heroes' Day celebration that President Emerson Dambuze Mnangagwa commended people of Zimbabwe for the prevailing peace ahead of the 44th SADC Summit of Heads of State and Government set for Saturday. You remember that Zimbabwe will be assuming the chair of the regional bloc until 2025 August. But what is worrying again, John, is that even if you have foreign affairs ministers meeting in Zimbabwe, you still have pockets of civil society that is planning to protest on the day. So we might be saying that there is peace, as Emerson Mnangagwa said yesterday during the Heroes' Day celebration, raising that in line with their mantra in Zimbabwe is that a friend to all and an enemy to none. But like I said to you, John, we'll wait and see. The theme for the summit. We will give the listeners more info on Friday about what are the goals of the Southern African Development Community, what we call the regional economic bodies in the AU.
And good news in talks between Somalia and Ethiopia.
Good news, but no progress made because this talks also being held, mediated by Ankara, the Turkish mediated talks. Remember that these talks are between Ethiopia and Somalia over Somaliland, that Ethiopia had a port deal that it signed early January, and that caused a conflict that the Somalian government did not recognize Ethiopian ambassadors, and it was also raising that this is an illegal agreement. So this is the second round of the talks, which did not make any deal, and they are expecting to go on the third round of talks as scheduled for next month on the 17th of September. So we might say they are meeting, but not physically. Turkey is going to Addis Ababa, is going to Mogadishu to engage with the foreign affairs minister. I find them being a sham or a facade of a mediation by a Turkish government when the AU should have taken lead in this crisis.
Here's a word I haven't heard for a while, the Lord's Resistance Army. What's happening?
Yeah, but when we talk of LRA, the name that comes to mind is Joseph Kony. But now we don't talk of Joseph Kony here. We are talking of the one who was one of the rebel leaders who was even found guilty yesterday by the government, by the court of Uganda, who was This rebel leader, John, his name is Thomas Kowelo. Thomas Kowelo was found guilty of dozens of war crimes, being one of the senior members of the group. He's been charged with many charges coming from murder, rape, enslavement, torture, and even kidnapping. It's only next week that there will be what we call the pre-sentencing hearings before the date setting of Kowelo sentencing, because that's how you will deal with it. You will also have to find him guilty, come with mitigation factors. And as we said, LRA has been on the news for almost 25 years so far, and Joseph Kony is still wanted by the ICC.
And I see there's good news for women in Malawi.
And that comes from the First Lady, Monica Chakwera, saying that it is important to empower women and girls with knowledge and skills in cyber security. Very important, John, when you think of cyber security. What we talk of this week, it was International Youth Day, and they were talking about digital natives. There are probably women and youth and children are digital natives. They are into artificial intelligence. They are using gadgets. They are on social media platforms. But it is important to deal with cyber threats. As women and girls are in the digital space, they need to also protect their identities, their names. That's why you can just post pictures of your family on the cyberspace, John, because that also gives those who want to kidnap your family the ransom to go through. So this conference, the First Lady of Malawi, as she was talking, it is attended by Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and so it will have been important also to see South Africa, because they are always on the digital space.
And what's your archive today?
I'm looking at this 6 years ago in Western Cape, where the student embarked on a sit-in and not allowing that the Professor Archibald Monwabisi Mafeje, who others are calling the Pathfinder, the intellectual Pathfinder, John, one of the knowledgeable elders in South Africa that not many of our scholars they know about. So Archibald Mafeje was not allowed by the then UCT to become one of the senior lecturers. That shows you a racist tension that was then UCT 56 years ago, and Archie Mafejo went as far as Namibia, Tanzania, and also UNISA, where he was a research fellow at the African Renaissance Center, and he died in 2007. So in our 30 years also, Archie Mafejo, Professor Archie Mafejo, the intellectual pathfinder, is one of those gems and those knowledge holders that South Africa must always cherish. And remember some of his chapters and journals, John, that were talking about religion, class, and ideology in South Africa, and finally talking about neocolonialism, state capitalism, or revolution. Asante sana, John, as you are still leading your conversation, SAfm observing the Women's Month.
Advocate Sibu Matula, thanks very much.
There's listening to the news, then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our business solar loans. Accessing our business solar loans means you get connected to the right supplier for your business and the most feasible tailor-made financing solution. And that financing solution means 8,760 hours of uninterrupted power for your business, sourced directly from the African sun. You see, there's going green. Then there's going green with us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
John, good morning. John, firstly, congrats on doing a wonderful job. You've taken over some big shoes there in Stephen Curtis, and you're doing fantastically well, so well done. Secondly, in terms of sort of running around doing showboating and signing silly petitions about gender-based violence, the root of all the problems is unemployment. A person sits at home, they drink, they get despondent, they argue, there's no money, it causes tension, they can't look after their kids, it just builds frustration. People who are out protesting in the morning with tires don't have a job. When you've got a job, you go to your work. The simple thing is to fix it. He's been in charge for 7 years and done absolutely zero, and we're still going backwards. We've got to fix the jobs crisis. Shortstory.com, Brad Marisburg.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still pretty heavy leading Pretoria this morning on the M1 queues from Garsfontein down to the construction of that sinkhole by the R21, and then it gets heavy again from Brockfontein right down to the new road exit. Crash on the N3 running southbound today before London Road. That's now a queue that extends back past Limbro Park and back towards Buccleuch. So from Buccleuch down to Alex Heavy. Motorists going north getting caught up in that with a backlog from Germiston's Elands interchange right through effectively to the Marlborough Drive exit today. And a fatal crash on the R21 north away from the airport up towards Pretoria. That collision scene just before you get to the R25. Bupsfontein exit. The highway's busy and it's pretty heavily backed up on the alternative route. A lot of traffic coming off on the R23 High Road and jamming that up into the Whitfield area, looking to get onto Pretoria Road, the alternative parallel route, if you like. Over in Durban, some heavy pressure on the N2 this morning. There's a backlog of traffic from the M7 through to Westwood Mall. That's fairly standard. But once you get past that, you're in the traffic again pretty quickly if you're on your way to the airport, queuing up beyond Queen Nandi Drive, right through to a breakdown in the roadworks near Umhlanga. The M4 from Clarewood into the city centre, that stays busy. And still a lot of pressure on your way to Pietermaritzburg, but it is starting to ease. The big backlog really camper down through to Umlas Road into a broken down vehicle. Cape Town, stay off the M3 inbound. We've been warning about this today. Flooding before you get to Hospital Bend. One lane open, queues all the way back beyond Constantia. That's a very heavy queue. And there's been a crash on the R300 southbound at the N2. So motorists driving from Kales River direction N2 stuck in a big backlog of traffic there. Almost back as far as Stellenbosch Arterial. Certainly by the time you get to Hindle Road, you're in the thick of it. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Victory in the opening match always sets a good tone, and that's what the Gunners of London are gunning for.
They've almost scored! Kai Havertz! And Arsenal have won it late on.
Meanwhile, the Wolves are on a real mission to howl for 90 minutes in search of essential 3 points.
Wolves have a second! And listen to the noise!
This is the Premier League. Witness the thrilling encounter between Arsenal FC and Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday, 17 August at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. Catch me, Bonang Mateba, on a fresh reality series that showcases the business behind being a business. Get to experience an intimate look at my life with family, personal growth, and my mission to uplift young women. Jet with me as we prepare to crown a lucky chaser. Be grounded, be entertained, and be dazzled. Monday, 6 p.m. on S3, it's a date with you and B. Catch Bedazzled by Bonang on S3 every Monday at 6 p.m.
What's the big deal? Well, if you like holidays, fun, and a whole lot of savings, then you'll be happy to know that SAFm's big 30% off sale is now on and will be running until midnight tonight. That's 30% off all domestic flights for travel between the 15th of August and the 17th of September 2024. So if you haven't done so yet, go to flysafare.co.za and start planning your great escape now. SAFm, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
SAfm Breakfast, helping you navigate your day.
Let's talk about local government and how local government can fix South Africa, ensure efficient and effective service delivery, more crucial than ever now. There are a number of issues, as we know, about local government, but how do we fix those? Dr. Daniel Govender has 5 points. He is the Regent Business School's academic head of the School of Law and Administration. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us. 5 points you've worked out to try and fix local government. In a nutshell, what are they?
Thank you. Is that John?
Yes, John, yes.
Thank you, John, and to your listeners. Thank you so much for this introduction and interview. I appreciate it. Yes, John, the 5 strategies that are actually indicated to fix up local government is I think it's your capacity building, your technological integration, your partnership and collaboration, your community engagement, and your performance monitoring. I think those are the 5 strategies that I think will fix local government of the challenges it faces in terms of bureaucratic inefficiencies, lack of resources, and widespread corruption. That's my take on it.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Capacity building. You mentioned lack of finances. So how do you finance training and getting the correct staff?
Well, in terms of the lack of, I term it as the lack of resources. One, the lack of resources can be from a point of financial resources and the lack of human capital. The lack of financial resources are the major contribution to capacity building. In terms of that is the municipality being involved in local government for the past 36 years, and at the municipality level, financial issues are the main contribution to lack of trained municipality. Therefore, the financial situation is that the municipality got to ensure that it uses its financial resources, which is the main resource. Financial resource come from your rates collection, rates and taxes, that it's distributed in a fair and just way for the training of local government officials. We may get the best in local government officials in terms of qualification, but in this.
All right, we're struggling with that line to Doctor. Sorry, Doc, you're breaking up. So maybe if you could just scoot around a little, maybe we'll get a little bit of a better signal to you. Let's talk about partnership and collaboration. It's almost a bad word. Involving private sector, building partnerships with private sector. Obviously, we need community organizations in local government, but talk us about what you mean with partnership and collaboration.
Partnership and collaboration is an example. There are many factors related to that. For example, at a local government level, we talk at local government level. Partnerships can be interaction with big businesses, okay, your corporate companies. Obviously, part of the corporate companies in your big business is part of their strategy is social development, the CSI, community social responsibility. How then do you effect your community social responsibility within the communities? Another big player is your civil society. Civil society started local government. They started the protest action to get local government in terms from a democratic perspective. So getting involved with civil society, getting involved with communities at the local level will actually add human resources and also to a certain extent the corporate companies' financial resources that can supplement local government finances and deliver the services that's required.
Something that pops up all the time, that last point of yours, performance monitoring. If somebody's not doing their job, something needs to happen, right?
Correct. Absolutely. Now, when you talk about performance monitoring and evaluation, for example, is no use giving a department or a project leader or a project or a company, for example, your tenders and so forth. No use giving them, awarding them as contracts and awarding your internal stakeholders, which are your departments within the municipality, and not following up, not monitoring. Are they implementing it according to their plans? Do you have a given a start date and a finish date, for example? Are they within the budgetary that was given for them for the particular project? Could be, for example, you're building a housing project. Are they monitoring the sustainability and that they're building the project according to the plans that were approved and given to the contractor for that sake? So project management plays an effective role in terms of implementing and monitoring, and also to an extent evaluating a particular project. In terms of tracking the progress of the project, tracking the bottlenecks. Bottlenecks could be whether you have enough finances at that point in time, or whether your bottlenecks, whether you need more staffing at the particular time, so that it can be driven, the project can be driven successfully in terms of the delivery outcomes. Or, for example, in this case, the example I gave is that to deliver the number of houses that's required.
It all sounds so easy. If you got the technology in the right place, you can do all these 5 things. It'll solve the problem. What about support from national government? Are local governments kind of left on their own, or are they getting the correct support?
Again, it all depends. Understand at a local government level, your municipal council makes the decisions, okay? And obviously you have your city manager who is your executive at that level. If they don't have their ducks in a row, in other words, yes, national, there's intergovernmental relations or corporate governance as we term it from a governance perspective, where national supports provincial and provincial supports local government. John, there are various fundings available from national government in terms of funding for projects. For example, one of the competencies of national government is the provision of housing. Yes, they will use local government as the mechanism to deliver this housing, but the funding comes from national government. And there are various underfunding from national government for various projects. For example, your development and implementation of your integrated development plan. There's a funding that comes from national government to ensure that those plans are in place obviously your IDP, which we term it, is your integrated development plan, is a strategic plan for the 5 years for local government. Funding is available for national government. However, John, that the municipality concerned, the city manager concerned, must ensure that they know the policies and processes to follow to tap into the financials from national, provincial, and local government.
All right, we need to leave it there. Dr. Daniel Govender is Regent Business School's academic head of their School of Law and Administration.
You are listening to SAfm Breakfast.
Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
Top stories for this hour. ANC still in coalition negotiations with Action SA, and the US increases efforts for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Good morning, I'm Eva Chipam. The ANC in Johannesburg says it's still in coalition negotiations with Action SA. This follows the announcement that regional chairperson and current finance MMC, Tata Morero, will be put up for the position of executive mayor of Johannesburg this week. Action SA wants, among others, the scrapping of the newly introduced R200 monthly electricity surcharge. But the ANC's Deputy Regional Secretary, Loyiso Masuku, says they can't promise to scrap the service fee.
Remember, we were very clear as the ANC that we will review the issue of the 200 Rand surcharge. And when we say we will review, we are cognizant of the fact that it can't be something that can just be taken to council and reversed. It requires a process. And we would expect that, in particular, Mr. Herman Mashaba, who is a former mayor, would know that there are actually council processes which require that.
13 accused implicated in the VBS scandal, where over 1.9 billion rand was looted from the bank between 2015 and 2018, are expected to appear in the High Court in Pretoria today. The DA and Action SA say they will protest outside court against corruption and the misuse of pensioners' savings and municipal funds. Nonhlanhla Njingila reports.
The group of 13 are implicated in what's been described as the Grand Bank heist. All face 180 charges, including racketing and corruption. Alleged kingpin CO Chifiwa Madodzi pleaded guilty to 33 counts for pocketing over 300 million by creating fake credit in the bank account. Nonhlanhla Njingila for SABC News, Pretoria.
Retired police cell phone data analyst Lamberta Steyn is expected back on the witness stand at the Senzo Miua murder trial. Steyn has been recalled to the High Court in Pretoria to clarify evidence on the alleged communication between Miua's former girlfriend Kelly Khumalo and one of the accused prior to the murder. Defense counsel Tulani Ngomezulu.
I will argue later that the rights of Kelly Khumalo and the person named in the communication between Kelly Khumalo, which is accused number 5, were infringed. I will argue that later.
Which rights are those? Sorry, let me understand. Which rights are those?
That the information obtained from Kelly Khumalo or the communications relating to what the state is alleging, it was a communication between Kelly Khumalo and accused number 5 was obtained unlawfully.
In other news, Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen says he will meet with his counterparts from both Botswana and Namibia to find a solution on the ban of South African citrus imports and other produce. Steenhuisen believes that the three countries can reach an agreement instead of shutting down the borders. Namibia imposed the ban between 2021 to 2025, while Botswana started from June until the end of August in order to improve the local production. Steenhuisen was speaking during a 2-day Agri-Limpopo Congress yesterday.
We believe we can find an amicable solution. I don't think we need to end up with situations where you block our products, we'll block yours. I don't think that's helpful to both countries. So I really hope that we will be able to sit around the table with Botswana and Namibia and to work out a compromise with them. We have an agreement in SACU. SACU's agreement is very clear that you cannot just simply arbitrarily close borders or shut down industries. But I don't think it needs to become an escalating trade war.
The National Health Department says there is no need for the public to be concerned about the Mpox outbreak being declared a public health emergency. This after the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention declared the outbreak a public health emergency on the continent. Department spokesperson Foster Mohale says the situation is currently under control. However, he has acknowledged that it can change at any moment.
We are working with a number of stakeholders, including the Border Management Authority, which is an entity of government which is responsible for looking after the borders for all people are coming to the country. Then they are also going to intensify the screening at the port of entry, especially zooming into people who are coming from countries currently battling the outbreak of this infectious disease. So we are working with a number of stakeholders in order to ensure that we protect South Africans against this.
And lastly, looking further afield, the US government has stepped up efforts to reach a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. President Joe Biden said such a deal will help deter Iran from launching attacks on Israel. The BBC's David Willis reports.
The United States believes a ceasefire deal in Gaza could avert the possibility of a retaliatory strike by Iran and thereby prevent the prospect of a wider war in the Middle East. Speaking to reporters during a visit to New Orleans, President Biden conceded the negotiations were getting hard, as he put it. A call from America's ambassador to turn down the temperature in the region was met with a demand from the Palestinian ambassador for sanctions on Israel and claims by Israel that Hamas was using civilians as human targets.
Recapping the top story for this hour, the ANC in Johannesburg says it's still in coalition negotiations with Action SA. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour for SAfm News. I'm Eva Chipa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS car to 43187. So you think your older car doesn't need insurance, but what if your car accidentally caused damage to someone's expensive car? Outsurance Essential is affordable insurance for older cars, giving you up to R1 million liability cover and loads more. Plus, claims are paid in cash, so you can use your own panel beater. Outsurance Essential is priced for cars older than 5 years, valued under 125,000 Rand and not financed. SMS car to 43187 or call 08600 60,000 today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Here's the heavy ones on a busy Wednesday morning. The Mopani Highway coming out of Shoshanguve on your route to Pretoria around Wonder Park area. Just expect a queue up there. The R80 getting pretty heavily backed up. There's some big delays as well coming off the N14, Krugersdorp Highway onto the M1 at Brakfontein up towards John Foster Drive on your way to Pretoria. That's a big backlog. A crash opposite Alex on the N3 causing delays both ways. Southbound, the backlog now into Becluid. A change in northbound. It starts at the cement factory right through to Limbro Park. Behind that N3 north, the N12 and R24 heavy as well. Still plenty of traffic jamming on Durban's N2 from the M7 through to Westwood Mall into the roadworks, and then from Inanda Road all the way through slowly towards a gateway into a broken down vehicle. The N3 to Pietermaritzburg easing. There's still one stationary truck just after Camperdown adding a bit of delay, but the really big backlogs that we had from earlier this morning have eased up. And Cape Town, a crash R300 south of the N2 causing some delays through the Delft area, and that flooding on the M3 inbound before Hospital Bend still causing an amazing queue back from the Constantia side, and also having a really big impact on the main road. Motorists jamming that to avoid the M3 jammed through Wynberg, Claremont, Newlands and Rondebosch. That main road super heavy as well. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm sports headlines, there's rugby this weekend in Perth, which sees the Boks tackling the Wallabies. And also in Perth, UFC champion Dricus du Plessis will face Israel Adesanya. Details at around 8:30.
Getting ahead of the morning with hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
It's 9 minutes past 8. Good morning to you. Into the final hour of SAfm Breakfast we go on this Wednesday morning. I'm John Gericke. Coming up, new smoking laws for South Africa are back. They lapsed at the end of the previous administration. The Control of Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Bill. We will talk to an expert on that. There's some good news for female researchers. Female researchers at CSIR have some groundbreaking technologies aimed at combating plastic solutions. We're going to talk to a principal researcher at CSIR about what she's been doing. And then towards the end of the show, we're going to talk sport with Michael Abramson. who's going to talk about Team South Africa's performance at the Olympic Games. Is it just about medals, or is it participation as well? That's important. That's coming up after 8:30. 10 minutes past 8 now. Let's go to calls on 086 000 2032. Willie in Kuma. Hello, Willie.
Yes, John, Leicester has a fluke, man. John, please organize Minister of Labour, Joe. Because you see, I remember one lady there, Kathy, I asked her the other day that, okay, try your best to organize us, blah, 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 of that department. And Kathy said to me, some of these ministers, in fact, are very hesitant to come and face the questions on the radio here. Look, you see, we've been talking until we are blue in our eyes in regards to unemployment in South Africa. And then I understand now we are the highest in the world, John. Now look, John, we're talking every time to say, okay, let's minimize the borders must be controlled as well. And then also you see, you go to the farms there, you find that these farms are hiring the foreign nationals who are illegal, and we see them here. And then John, when we're talking this, trying to assist you, then you would say we are xenophobic. So John, it's better for you to organize the Minister of Labour so that we talk to them straightforwardly, because sometimes, not all of you, sometimes some of you wouldn't have the answers. Instead, you would be defensive against what you are saying.
All right, Willie and Kuma, thank you very much. We'll see what we can do. Willie and Kuma, the Minister of Labour, to come on the show and answer some questions.
20 outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season, with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
Rodri! City 3! West Ham 1!
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
Caicedo, is he going to try and beat it from inside his own half? Oh, Moises Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Chelsea goal!
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Feel Good Fridays just got even better with a brand new Espresso newsletter, The Feel Good Fix. Delivered to your inbox every Friday, it is your weekly dose of joy, entertainment, and local flair. Subscribe now at expressoshow.com and never miss a moment.
From heartwarming stories to tasty recipes, it's all there waiting for you. And remember to tune in to the Espresso Morning Show weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on S3, and let's start your day right and channel your inner feel good.
SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day, where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Jacob in Witbank, good morning.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Lekker, go ahead.
Oh, I wish I could say SAfm 88, man. No, I want to talk about this unemployment thing.
Yeah.
You know, I genuinely believe that the people in higher power are happy to see unemployment, because really there is a system that can collapse unemployment rate within 30 days. I don't know why we are not shifting into the 24-hour working system, because clearly that should collapse this unemployment rate. We get the cities 24 hours. I said this before also here on SAfm that if we get the city to operate in 24 hours, it should be able to collect the unemployment rate. I don't know what's the take on that. And also, my question is, how do they calculate the percentage as to how many people are unemployed compared to people who are self-employed? That's my opinion this morning, John. Thank you. I'll listen while I'm driving.
Thank you very much. Drive safely, Jacob in Witbank. I think the way they work it out is if you're self-employed, you're counted as employed. If you run your own little business, then you're counted as employed. That's the way I understand it, and I'm sure that Stats SA will be able to answer that as well, and they've probably answered that, but we'll ask that next time. And 24-hour city, but then we talk about budgets all the time, don't we?
Keeping you informed and ready for the day ahead on #SAfm Breakfast.
8:15, new smoking laws for South Africa are back. They lapsed at the end of the previous administration. It's called the Control of Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Bill. Professor Likan Ayo Yusuf is the chairperson and head of School of Health Systems and Public Health at the University of Pretoria, also executive director at the National Council Against Smoking. Prof, thanks very much for joining us. Tell us about this Tobacco Act. There was a lot of talk at the end of the administration. What's going to happen now?
Good morning, John, and good morning to your listeners. So, indeed, the law was tabled at the Parliament before the end of the 6th administration. I'm just very glad that the 7th administration found it urgent to actually revive the process. So the process had stopped wherein the public were being consulted on the content, and at that stage we had gone through 7 provinces, they were left with 2. So I'm hoping that would then conclude that public consultation process, and then the Parliament would be able to apply their mind based on those submissions. And then in parallel it goes to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence.
Prof, there's been a report that government must use research available, used evidence-based measures in the bill, should not be swayed by misinformation. What is meant by misinformation on smoking?
So, as we all know, this is a big industry. The tobacco industry are multinationals. For the most part, the largest share of the market would be British American Tobacco, Philip Morris, and then you have local manufacturers in the case of South Africa. However, these companies they've been trying to protect their profits naturally for shareholders, both in Britain and elsewhere, and therefore every effort was to manipulate science. Tobacco control is very contextual. So whenever we provide science, local evidence of the effectiveness of some of these measures that have been proposed, the industry basically pivots to something else. For example, they keep saying there was no socioeconomic impact assessment, but this has been available. In fact, there have been 2 versions of the socioeconomic impact assessment. One as far back as 2018 when the fourth bill was published, and I found one on the website that was on the website of the National Department of Health last year already. So I'm not sure why they keep misinforming the public. They talk about giving jobs. We know the last data we have from tobacco industry, because it's not a labor-intensive manufacturer company, basically very mechanized. So they basically have less than 3,000 employees, but they then multiply by 10 with the assumption that they're also employing those who make the boxes and the rest of it. So it's a lot of misinformation on the economic impact that we know is not correct.
All right, well, let's run through those. What about the loss of tax revenue and possibly illicit tobacco products as well? If you ban something, you make it more difficult to buy, then people will go buy the illegal ones.
So let's start with the last sentence. This bill is not going to ban. So I think that's another misinformation.
Okay.
It does not ban tobacco use. It regulates tobacco use. So for the most part, because of nicotine addiction, many people would continue to use it, but we expect a slow decrease in the use. So talking about tax revenue, so what happens is that most of the tax revenue, about 52%, which is excise tax, and 15% which includes the 18%, 15% VAT. What would happen is that those who are paying, all of that money is paid by the smoker, by the way. So that money, which would have gone to this harmful product, could be used to buy something else. And those companies are usually more labor-intensive than tobacco companies. So they create more jobs in that process, and they will still pay tax to the South African Revenue Services, including the VAT. So it is actually a misnomer to think that tobacco industry pays any more revenue to the South African Revenue Services. On the other hand, you then don't have government spending 42 billion rand. You prevent 30,000 deaths annually and 200,000 admissions from tobacco-related illnesses. So it is quite a massive and straightforward benefit for any government to implement this bill.
All right, Prof, this is in the process, as you said. So when do you see this being implemented, and what does this mean for the average smoker?
We're hoping that it gets done as quick as yesterday. So we all depending on the parliamentary process. I'm hoping that this shouldn't take longer than 6 months, because every time we wait, we basically having 30,000 people. Since 2018, we've been waiting. 30,000 people are dead. So I'm hoping that the parliamentarians will see it as urgent. For the smokers themselves, they see it as a process to start to get help in getting an environment that makes it easier for them to quit. So that when they go to buy, for example, many people want to quit. They go into a supermarket, and then you have, while you're paying for your bread, you have this big display of cigarettes, and then it's a cue to smoking. Then you get this craving, and you're back to smoking again.
Professor Lekan Ayu Yusuf, thank you very much. Chairperson, the Head of School of Health Systems and Public Health at the University of Pretoria, Executive Director at the National Council Against Smoking.
Everyone is just as important as you are. Stop gender-based violence. Treat others the way you want to be treated. No one deserves any form of violence. Report gender-based violence. Contact Lifeline South Africa toll-free number on your mobile phone. Call or WhatsApp 0800 150 150. That's 0800 150 150. Lifeline South Africa. Mental and emotional health for all. This is an SABC supported initiative.
Catch me, Bonang Mateba, on a fresh reality series that showcases the business behind being a business. Get to experience an intimate look at my life with family, personal growth, and my mission to uplift young women. Jet with me as we prepare to crown a lucky chaser. Be grounded, be entertained, and be dazzled. Monday, 6 p.m. on S3 is a date with you and B. Catch Bedazzled by Bonang on S3 every Monday at 6 p.m.
The Science of Life on SAfm.
The CSIR yesterday hosted a hybrid media briefing to share research and innovation aimed at addressing plastic-related concerns across the entire life cycle of plastic products. Importantly, it was done by female scientists at the CSIR. One of those is Dr. Maya John Matthew, Principal Researcher at CSIR. How was that gathering, Doctor? Successful?
Oh yes, the event was quite successful, set up very well. Everybody was very interested in what we were displaying, and especially the outcomes of our project.
The important is practical solutions. This isn't just science pie in the sky, is it?
Yes, absolutely. So the main topic was plastic pollution, and as we all know, we don't have a single solution or a silver bullet to solve the problem of plastic pollution. It has to be multiple approaches. So one of the approaches is, you can improve the waste management systems in the country. You can improve the recycling rates. That's in the plastic sector. And the most important part is you can develop environmentally friendly and bio-based materials as an alternative to all those plastic products that are not recycled, which is what we are doing at the CSIR.
Your specialist, biodegradable plastic prototypes. Sounds very complicated. What is it?
What we are saying is that when you look at plastic products, there are several products which cannot be recycled because either it's not economic, there's no economic value to it, or it is contaminated. So For those products, we can develop bio-based and compostable materials as a replacement. So examples of this would be like within the packaging sector, you have food cartons, polystyrene food cartons that are contaminated with food waste, so it's not recycled. Another example would be several products in the biomedical sector, which are single-use products and are not recycled. Even within the agricultural sector, you have examples of mulch films, which are, contaminated with soil, and then it is also not recycled. So for all these kind of products, we can develop compostable materials that have the same properties as these plastics, but after use, it will biodegrade into non-toxic residues like carbon dioxide and water.
What about the cost? Will it cost more money to make these things?
Yes, so the biopolymers are more expensive than the conventional plastics because they're plant-based. So we have a strategy around that. What we do is we develop and extract fillers from biomass-based residues like, bagasse, maize stover. So we extract residues like starch and cellulose, and these can be added into the biopolymers. So what that does is it reduces the cost of the final product, as well as it gives more functional properties like it can improve strength or increase biodegradation rates as well.
What about big oil? And how are you fighting big oil? Because they want their oil to be used for plastic. They've got all the money in the world.
Yeah, we're not saying that every product, that plastic should be completely banned or that all products should be replaced by compostable materials. Plastic has its value. It has several attributes, and therefore it has its value. But we're talking about specific niche products which cannot be recycled. All those single-use products which you see accumulating in the environment. So for those products, we have environmentally friendly alternative.
Okay, what's the way forward now? You've had this. You've done all this research. Will people start implementing it?
Yes. So we have several companies interested in the prototypes that we have developed. So within the CSIR itself, we have divisions like the Business Development and Commercialization Division. We have a company called C-Cube. So all of these companies would help, entrepreneurs or SMEs who are interested in licensing these technologies. They can contact these divisions within the CSIR, and they will actually take this forward.
Sounds like good news for the environment. Dr. Maya John Matthew, Principal Researcher at the CSIR, thank you very much for your work.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Take some voice notes to get us up to news headlines.
Morning, John. Hi, it's Chris in Maritzburg. I think the first thing that you need to do is to change some of the restrictive policies. We have been talking about it. I think the president appointed someone to remove the red tape. It is still a priority now. We haven't seen any movement. But secondly, we need South Africans to invest in South Africa. Our savings record remains very pathetic. We need to invest in our own economy rather than consume a lot. The fact that we are importing a lot of some of this clothing is still shameful.
John Gerika, hi. I want this JCK counter from Sina. Hey, John Vulligate, unemployment high volume in South Africa is a man-made crisis. And caring government is failing us big time. How can illegal immigrants compete with South Africans for the little resources that we've got? It doesn't make sense at all. To be in a foreign country without documents, it's crime on its own. Why is it allowed in South Africa? Let me rest my case for now. JCK, counter from Sina.
And quickly before headlines, let's go to Ninja in Durban. Morning, Ninja.
I want to talk about this musical chairs, and you take off one hollow block and you put another hollow block. It's a regurgitation of the same old thing. This is why nothing changes. Many of these people that are in heads of department or below them have no knowledge about anything, but they're sitting on a lovely package. We're all dressed and know where to go. This is why you have a situation after 30 years. You look at every sector, there's a problem. And the balance is changing to the detriment of the economy. You see? Hello?
Yeah, we're listening, Ninja. Thank you.
Yeah. What's required, you need birth control in South Africa. You can't have 8, 9 children because it becomes a problem for the government when it comes to social grounds. I'm giving you one example. And they haven't created jobs. They don't know how to create the jobs. Where I live, it's a ghost town. All the industries, top industries, have shut. And they keep talking about creating employment. You need young entrepreneurs to come onto the marketplace, you see.
Yep. All right, Ninja, thank you very much. Young entrepreneurs is the future, according to Ninja, and birth control. It's 8:30.
In news making headlines for this hour, Rise Mzansi says a shortage of detectives in South Africa should be a cause of concern for all citizens. This follows a written parliamentary reply by Police Minister Senzo Mchunu that the SAPS has a detective vacancy rate of just over 8,500. In other news, the ANC in Johannesburg says it's still in coalition negotiations with Action SA. And lastly, motorists in the Eastern Cape have been warned to be extra cautious and avoid being on the road if possible. This follows a level 6 strong winds warning issued by the SA Weather Service, with gusts wind speed of up to 100 kilometers per hour to 120 kilometers per hour, especially in the Buffalo City and Nelson Mandela Bay metros. I'll be back at 9 for SAfm News. I'm Eva Chipa.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very busy at this hour. The N3 north from Bedfordview all the way through to Limbro Park stays heavy after an earlier crash involving a pedestrian. That collision in front of Alex between the London Road exit and Marlborough Drive. Also a crash on the Mike 1 just past Grayston. That's going north, so heavy pressure coming up from Houghton Estate through Melrose on your way to Santon. Also, just note there's no traffic lights on Grayston Drive at the Mike 1, so there's some additional delays there as well. Fatal crash still with us on the R21 north before the Bobsfontein exit, so heavy pressure leaving the airport on your way towards Pretoria this morning. R80, Mopoli Highway, if you're leaving Shoshingube, just factor in some queue time down towards Wonder Park area. That's all very heavy. Durban still battling up that into northbound with a breakdown before Gateway. It's been there all morning. The traffic stays really heavily backed up from as far back as sort of, well, just after Inanda Road, actually get into some real heavy stuff. And then Cape Town, major delay alert for anyone coming in from the south. The M3 is very heavily congested from Constantia. It's literally standstill all the way to Hospital Bend due to flooding, and the left lane, just the right lane open. You've got now major delays on the alternative routes. Main Road from Wynberg, Deep Riverside, in fact, up through Wynberg, Claremont, Newlands, all the way through to Rondebosch is heavy, in the M5 under pressure from Ottery Road, and any route that sort of runs in between those highway networks and the main road are also pretty heavily back through the southern suburbs areas. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, morning to you. MMA with Kolisi and Estabeth. That's going to be intimidating. What's that? What?
It's going to be a buffet of action. The box there, they'll be serving up serious tackles the day before. They'll be taking on the Wallabies. And Dricus du Plessis will be ready to ascend against Israel Adesanya with his game plan. It's all happening this weekend in Perth. And it's going to be exciting to see Springbok star Siya Kolisi and Eben Etzebeth walk out with Dricus du Plessis. And du Plessis, who has a strong bond with the box, says there's nothing that can stop him once the South African flag is draped over his shoulder. And the Springboks will have taken on the Wallabies in the Rugby Championship a day before. Now, closer to home, SuperSport United midfielder Brooklyn Pochenpoel says he's found the environment at his new club welcoming as he crosses paths with coach Gavin Hunt. The 24-year-old was coming up the Bidvest Wits ranks during Hunt's successful stint there prior to the Clever Boys top-flight status being sold. Pochenpoel spoke about his surprise move away from Chippa United on a free transfer.
I think it's a fantastic move. I feel it's at the right time of my career. Just happy to be here. It's a great club. I'm looking forward to it. To be honest with you, it's a great group of guys. They've been very welcoming. It's a good environment. It's good attitude from everyone, and everyone's just here to work and contribute to the success of the club.
And tennis action, the Olympic silver medalist Donna Vekic knocked out of the Cincinnati Open in the first round by the world number 62, Ashlyn Kruger of the United States. Ben Shelton defeated fellow countryman Riley Opelka, and USA's Francis Tiafoe defeated Spain's Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, also at the Cincinnati Open. Now, South Africa's Olympic heroes are back from Paris, and they brought more than just medals. They brought inspiration. Minister Gayton McKenzie promises to double our team size for LA 2028, determined to give every talented athlete a chance. Our golden girl, Tatiana Smith, shone bright, winning gold and silver in the pool, while Johan van Dijk's javelin silver came despite zero financial support. The future of SA sport looking bright, with new stars like Bayanda Walaza, who sprinted to silver in the relay, already making their mark. Walaza has listed his teammate and Mzansi sprint king Akani Simbine as his biggest inspiration and the man who motivated him a lot in the recent Olympic Games. Walaza, at the age of 18, was the youngest member of the 4x100 meter relay team that won the silver medal in Paris, anchored by Simbine.
And also AK, like I look up to AK a lot. Like that guy, like he's something else. I don't wanna lie. Like that guy inspired me. Like I don't know what to say, but yeah, for him to stand up for the country like that, even if he didn't get the medal, but he was happy about it. Because he showed up for the country. It's not like he was not there. So other people like talking he didn't bring back the medal again and all of that. And that's not good. Because that guy showed up for the country. Not only once. Yeah. Like since he was on the game and he was fighting for the country. When he's standing there, he's not standing for Akani, but he's standing for every one of you here. So that guy like pushes us a lot, and like we really appreciate him a lot.
That's Olympic medalist Bayanda Walaza on SAfm. And finally, Nigeria failed to win any medals in the Olympics. Sporting officials are under pressure from accusations of incompetence and calls for reform over what the sports minister branded a disastrous outcome in Paris. While smaller nations on the continent came home with multiple medals, Nigeria was left empty-handed for the first time since the 2012 London Olympics. That's a wrap. More sport on SAfm around 12:30 with John Herica. I'm Zaikan.
The Business Update on SAfm.
Business reporter and Tolling Lachela, you've been leaving the elephant in the room until now. Unemployment numbers out yesterday.
Yes. So South Africa's unemployment crisis has deepened. In the second quarter, the jobless rate shot up to 33.5% from 32.9%. It is at a 2-year high. Now, sectors that were hit the hardest were trade and agriculture. Trade shed about 111,000 jobs, while the agri-industry lost 45,000 jobs. When measured by provinces, the Western Cape still has the lowest unemployment rate at 22.2%, while Northwest topped the charts at 41.3%. When based on the expanded definition, the jobless rate in Northwest is a staggering 54.2%. The latest data paints a bleak picture of South Africa's unemployment situation, just deepening existing struggles within poverty and inequality. Funny enough, though, there was hardly any blackouts during the period, which would suggest that more economic activity is taking place without disruptions, allowing businesses to perhaps hire more workers, especially as Eskom's struggles have been identified as the primary obstacle to economic growth and job creation in the country. But it's clear that a more sustained period of reliable power supply is necessary to drive, meaningful investment and progress within the economy.
You say that, but worries in the mining sector?
Sticking with local economic data, another print just suggesting that the economy barely grew in the second quarter. Mining output fell 3.5% on an annual basis in June, continuing its losing streak in the second quarter. The largest negative contributors were iron ore and coal, which saw output decreasing by 12% and 2.6% respectively. Now, when looking at how the sector performed in the second quarter, production fell 0.9%, suggesting that the industry will be a drag to the second quarter GDP data. Oxford economist Gerrit van Rooyen said that while the latest mining data suggested that the sector would dampen real GDP growth in the second quarter, the decline was probably not enough to drag the economy into a technical recession. He added that Oxford expects the slight improvement in manufacturing output to steer the economy to a small expansion of 0.3%. However, if June's retail sales report disappoints, it could tip the scales towards a recession.
And telling what's happening in the markets today.
So the JSE is in for an upbeat start, taking the lead from its international peers. Locally, we have the Saki Business Confidence Index being released. We've also got updates from Advitech, DRD Gold, and Northern Platinum. So lots for markets to digest today. Meanwhile, in the currency scene, the rand still poised for more gains as Fed rate hike bets continue to grow. It's currently trading at 18.12 to the dollar. Moving over to Asian markets, those stocks in for a mixed finish today despite the upbeat inflation data we saw yesterday. And over in Wall Street, futures pretty flat. Investors a bit cautious ahead of the US consumer inflation print out later today.
Darling Michela, thank you very much. Chat to you again tomorrow.
20 outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
Rodri! City 3! West Ham 1!
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
Caicedo, is he going to try and beat it from inside his own arm? Oh, Moises Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Chelsea goal!
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to John Gerika on SAfm.
18 minutes to 9, let's talk sport. 100 South Africans went to compete at the 2024 Olympic Games in France, came back with 6 medals. Michael Abramson, I'm sure, watching all of the Olympic action. Michael, when you look at those stats, are we pleased or can we do better?
I think a bit of both, John, but I think we'd be pleased with the medals that we did get. Some of them were huge surprises. For example, the Blitzbox medal, I mean, they qualified in the very, very last moment. And then they started the tournament really badly with 2 losses, but then had some fantastic wins along the way. So securing an unexpected bronze, I think Alan Hatherley in the mountain biking, that was a surprise medal. And certainly Johanne van Dijk in the javelin was a surprise medal. So in many respects, our athletes maybe didn't quite get the medals that maybe they were expecting to get, but many of them had PBs and personal achievements. So I think overall the team did exceptionally well.
Yeah, I was talking about this yesterday. Making it to a B final at the Olympic Games is still something special. And I'm thinking of the canoeists or kayakers. It's impressive to still win a B final. That's top 9 in the world.
Yes, I agree with you entirely. I mean, even if you look on the track, as far as some of our field events were concerned, kayakers, as you said, and many others in many different sporting codes, what they achieved was fantastic. It doesn't mean just because you can't be in the top 3 in your particular event on the day that you haven't achieved personal milestones, and many of them did. They deserve a lot of credit. I think what is really good going forward is that we have a nucleus of exceptional young talent, and for LA, if that talent is nurtured, I think we are in for some really good games if we can keep the young talent that we have in the different sporting codes motivated and give them the opportunity to shine. I think we could do a lot better in LA in 4 years' time.
Now that's the conversation we have now, Michael, are the smaller sports. The athletics has been struggling for sponsorship, canoeing, kayaking, hardly any sponsorship. They've just got the big events. The sprinting is not really a thing. Cycling, mountain biking, Alan Hathley's actually had to go base himself overseas. The sports minister has a lot of talk when he comes home. Double the team size. We're going to support and pay back parents. Is that all feasible?
Probably not, and that's the problem. I think maybe big business has to come in and seeing what our athletes did achieve at these Olympics. Money has to flow in. They have to find it. SASCOC have to get on board here and start looking for sponsorship opportunities to look after these athletes, because as you say, many of them are now basing themselves overseas. They're leaving the shores of our country. They don't have the competition that they need in South Africa. So something has to change definitely to make that dream a reality. But there's no doubt that the talent is here and it's here in abundance. So if we can get our structures in place and improve the situation, and I think big business will see opportunities with our athletes to take them forward and to give them a chance to shine at LA in 2028. And if that can happen, then there's no limit to what we can achieve. But as you say, it needs a lot of support, it needs a lot of structures in place, and I'm not sure how feasible it is. I suppose time will tell.
We do say that every 4 years, and you would think big business would jump on it now. Go, well, okay, we're going to support the boulderer who managed 20th place, struggled at the performance, but she's doing it almost by herself.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely so. So look, I can't talk for big business, but I think if opportunities are there, it's up to big business to identify them and to say, okay, you know what, we have the opportunities to come in. We can get a lot of mileage out of these athletes if we nurse them going forward. So definitely there are opportunities there. Whether they'll be taken or not, I don't know. We'll have to have that conversation in a few years' time.
Let's talk about development, trying to find the talent. We know South Africa has great sporting talent. Slipped through the cracks. You heard Tatiana Smith saying how swimmers are falling through the cracks. How do we solve that problem?
That's a very, very difficult one to pick up on, because as I said to you, we don't have the meat in this country that allow our swimmers to perform at the highest level. We have a few competitions, but nowhere near the competitions they would need to be competitive on the world stage. As far as our athletes are concerned, if you look at our relay team, for example, we had a young schoolboy who's now back writing the trick. The performance, he was thrust into the limelight, wasn't expecting to run at the relays, and showed what he could do when Benji Richardson got injured and Walasa had to come in and lead the side in the relays, and they picked up a silver medal. And Anna Malherba, who was my guest last night on SAfm, and somebody I worked with extensively over the course of the Olympics, he said that silver medal was directly attributable to the performance from Walasa starting us off so well as he did. So there definitely are opportunities for athletes, and when they thrust into the limelight, they perform for the most part. So that's the good news. As you say, the issue is how do we take things going forward, and that's something that has to be solved by various partners.
Yeah, the minister wants to bring sports back into schools. Schools say they don't have the budget. Teachers might not want to do all of that. This is bigger than just a sports minister saying we're going to double the size, as you said, big business, but also different government departments.
Yes, sure. And I mean, the sports minister, he looks like he's making a lot of interesting statements, coming out there, all guns blazing, trying to make an impression. But let's see, as we've always said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Let's see what structures he can put in place. Let's see what he can do to change things around, obviously with a lot of support from various different organizations across the board. But he talks a big talk, and it's pleasing to hear. But let's see some action. Let's see what happens going forward, because I think we need that. But certainly as far as Team South Africa are concerned, I think we can be very pleased with what we achieved at these Olympics.
We haven't spoken about SASCOC at all. Where's SASCOC's role in this?
So SASCOC's role is a sort of an overseer role to provide our athletes with the structures that they need to be able to perform, to secure funding if possible, to make sure that our athletes don't go and perform elsewhere in the world and don't disappear off our shores and potentially represent other countries at the Olympics if they've got dual citizenship or ancestry from other countries, because that can certainly happen. So their role is pretty important in terms of keeping our athletes happy, keeping our athletes satisfied. I'm not sure that they're doing that successfully at the moment across the board, but they have got some good leadership, and they have got people in place sports people who are genuine people who want to see the team succeed. So their role is pivotal, but they have to, again, put structures in place and come to the party going forward.
I want to come back to the games.
Yes.
To make and I just want to maybe just help me if I'm right or wrong. To make an Olympic Games is the biggest achievement, medals aside. Just the fact that you were at the games, you had to go through all the qualifying. I'm thinking of the hockey teams that had to go through qualifying, the men's rugby team, as you say, that went the long way around. Just to be there alone must be the exceptional for the sports people. Even if they don't come back with medals, we still have to congratulate them for being there.
John, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. And even if we look at some of our competitors who competed, for example, in the C final, which if they compete in the rowing, for example, one of our competitors reached a C final on one of the early days of the tournament. So a C final means you're 14th in the world or 13th in the world. That is a fantastic achievement. And we can't only look at medal situations and say, okay, you didn't come in the top 3 on your day in your particular event. That basically means that you failed. You definitely didn't fail. What looks like somebody like Akani Simbini, for example, when he ran his sprint race, he came fourth, and he came fourth by 1/1000th of a second. He was effectively, I think, 3/1000ths of a second off the gold medal. So it was essentially a blink of an eye, the difference between a medal and nothing. So if we look at that, we've got to look back and say, how did the athlete achieve in terms of season's best, personal achievement? Just because he didn't achieve that minute amount of time in terms of completing his race doesn't mean that he had an unsuccessful Olympics. Most of our competitors in various different sporting codes achieved PBs and really excelled when the pressure was on, and that shows that we certainly have the raw talent. We've got the ability in various different sporting codes. Now we just need to go out and nurture that and give our athletes a chance to perform going forward. But the fact that they've got this experience in front of big crowds and the fact that they can handle it, particularly a youngster like Walaza, for example, I cited him as 18 years of age. In 4 years' time, he's going to be 22. He's going to have that experience, and he's going to know what it takes to perform at an Olympics. So things like that all go really well going forward.
Michael Abramson, thank you very much.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, Joburg N3 North, which had been heavy this morning due to a crash up at Alex, is finally starting to move on. Looks like that collision I can confirm that crashing has been cleared. There is a crash coming into Galulis on the N12 and R24 routes. Both of those routes into the interchange, arriving from Ekurhuleni, quite heavily backed up. N3 North into Elon's interchange, arriving up from Spruitview. All of a sudden, that's getting busy. And we've got that fatal collision on the R21 away from the airport towards Pretoria before the R25 Bupsfontein exit, still causing delays. Durban, the N2 North is breakdown at Gateway. It's been there all morning. In fact, there may well have been a couple, but net result is the same. Very heavy queues on the N2 North from Queenlandy Drive territory right through to the M41 exit Adam Schlanger. N3, Cato Ridge, Camperdown, Blimfield Park, Ashburton into Pietermaritzburg, all cleared up. Did clear a while ago after last night's major truck crash, and there is really a significant amount of congestion around Cape Town's southern suburbs this morning. You've got flooding on the M3 inbound before Hospital Bend. So the M3, a disaster from Constantia. Main Road, the alternative route through the southern suburbs, under pressure from Wynberg right through to Rondebosch. M5 from Ottery, taking extra traffic, so that's slow right through to the M2. And just a load of congestion in the Rondebosch, Claremont, Newlands, Rosebank, Mowbray areas. You won't believe how thick and how heavy it is in there. That flooding on the M3 this morning causing some real disruption around that part of Cape Town. Make sure you've got plenty of time to get through it all. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAfm.
Let's take it one step at a time. You've probably used the word illegal 5 times. I mean, how do you know they're illegal in terms of illegal nationals as opposed to illegal doing illegal work?
Well, I can tell you, Ashraf, I wasn't born yesterday. I know the loss of this country. No one can operate businesses after from one house. It's a normal residential house. The following day, it's turned into a commercial enterprise with buildings in a place where used to be one house. All of a sudden, it's 20 rooms. There's no way that can be legal. I don't need any legal person to tell me that it's an illegal activity.
Herman Mashaba, the leader of Action SA.
The National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAfm, let's talk.
We got 6 minutes to the news at 9 o'clock. KG's in for Kathy again today after the news at 9. But let's take some voice notes now. Voice note number 0614 104 107.
Hey, John, and all SAfm listeners, good morning. That's very interesting that the Ukrainian troops are entering the Russian soil, and that they are inflicting an agonizing pain to Russian President Vladimir Putin, and of which he's actually getting the taste of his medicine. Didn't understand, from the beginning of the war that a sovereign state like Ukraine can be just brutally attacked by Russia. So, well, this is good move, interesting one, and I hope for them to keep it up and move forward. And this is Andila from Stagsbridge in the Eastern Cape, near the Lesotho borders.
Morning, John, and the listeners. This is Magdalene from Blue. Thank you very much for bringing a representative from CISR to come and give more information and clarity about waste and plastic reuse, or let me say recycling. Do you know heavy tile? The tile we use for roofing, which is more expensive. It was initially developed in South Africa and then relocated to other countries. Now it is called an import, and it is more expensive than any roof tile in South Africa. Can we just industrialize waste and combat unemployment and empower our economy? Magdalene from Bloom, thank you.
A little while ago, I was lucky enough to go to a recycling facility, I'm sure I've told you, just outside of Pietermaritzburg, and they had a smelter, and they just shoved all kind of plastics in there. It didn't have to be clean, didn't have to be anything. And they, from chip packets to you name it, and it turned into like this grey sludge. But then they would form that grey sludge into a breeze block, like a building block, but it was made just of this plastic, and they were using that to build houses or build infrastructure, using these breeze blocks of just plastic, and it was fascinating to watch. So yeah, things are being done. That was very small scale, and if you largen that up, but you still need people to put the plastic somewhere, and are people willing to do that?
John, just some input on the news and the unemployment story, and then the assumption that because there hasn't been load shedding, the economic activity continued unhindered. The reality is that the part of the reason that there's no load shedding is because the economy is doing so badly. So you've got large power users that are working at a fraction of their efficiency. It's demonstrated by the mining drop-offs, but you can also find it with the smelters in Richards Bay and a number of other high power use industries around the country. The economy is so flat that a lot of these places have gone on part-time or short hours, and so the demand for power has dropped, which has resulted in no load shedding. It's not that they're operating without interruption. They're operating so interrupted that we don't have load shedding.
Let's go to Sam in Limpopo. Morning, Sam.
Good morning, John, and how are you?
Lekker, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the foreigners and the level of crime in our country. There's a lot of foreigners in our country than any other country, especially Nigerians. We have more than 15 million foreigners in our country.
15 million, right?
So the government does not have any plan or any policy. I just want to find out, what does our government benefit, even business and the citizens of South Africa, especially by allowing foreigners like Nigerians? Because if you look at Nigerians, they are not allowed in any other European countries, even some of the SADC countries.
Right.
You look at Botswana and Zimbabwe.
So what does that say about
and
those
Mozambique.
countries? What does it say about those countries?
Yes.
Right. I don't understand what your point is. What's the point?
Well, I just want to find out, our government, what action, because they're not prepared, to do anything with foreigners in our country.
Sam and Mpopa.
Especially.
Yep. All right, Sam. We will ask the question, Sam. What is the reason for allowing 15 million foreigners into the country, and Nigerians in particular, Sam? You're with SAfm. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to the team for putting a great show together. It's 9 o'clock.
Top stories for this hour. South Africa experiences a shortage of detectives and talks begin around the civil war in Sudan. Good morning, I'm Eva Chipa. Rise Mzansi says a shortage of detectives in South Africa should be a cause of concern for all citizens. This follows a written parliamentary reply by Police Minister Senzo Mchunu that the SAPS has a detective vacancy rate of just over 8,500. The provinces with the highest vacancy rates are KZN and the Western and Eastern Cape, where each province has a vacancy rate of more than 1,000 detectives. Rise Mzansi's MP, Magashule Khan.
So the response that the minister gave, that there are 8,594 vacancies that remains open for detectives, should be a big concern for all of us, considering that we've got a high crime rate in the country and that many cases go unsolved, and even the detectives that are in the employ of South African Police Service, they are overwhelmed by the number of cases that they have to attend to.
The ANC in Johannesburg says it's still in coalition negotiations with Action SA. This follows the announcement that regional chairperson and current finance MMC Tata Morero will be fielded for the position of executive mayor of Johannesburg this week. Action SA wants, among others, the scrapping of the newly introduced 200 Rand monthly electricity surcharge. But the ANC's deputy regional secretary, Loyiso Masuku, says they can't promise to scrap the service fee.
Remember, we were very clear as the ANC that we will review the issue of the 200 Rand surcharge. And when we say we will review, we are cognizant of the fact that it can't be something that can just be taken to council and reversed. It requires a process. And we would expect that, in particular, Mr. Herman Mashaba, who is a former mayor, would know that there are actually council processes which require that.
Retired police cell phone data analyst Lambert de Steyn is expected back on the witness stand at the Senzo Miua murder trial. Steyn has been recalled to the High Court in Pretoria to clarify evidence on the alleged communication between Miua's former girlfriend Kelly Khumalo and one of the accused prior to the murder. Defense counsel Tulani Ngomezulu.
I will argue later that the rights of Kelly Khumalo and the person named in the communication between Kelly Khumalo, which is accused number 5, were infringed. I will argue that later.
Which rights are those? Sorry, let me understand. Which rights are those?
The communications relating to what the state is alleging. It was a communication between Kelly Khumalo and accused number 5 was obtained unlawfully.
In other news, motorists in the Eastern Cape have warned to be extra cautious and avoid being on the road if possible. This follows a level 6 strong winds warning issued by the SA Weather Services, with wind speed of up to 100 km per hour to 120 km per hour, especially in the Buffalo City and Nelson Mandela Bay metros. Provincial Transport spokesperson Unathi Bingosi.
We have seen a phenomenon like this exactly a month ago, and unfortunately there were some fatalities. I remember on the 11th of July reporting about an accident that happened on the N6 where a vehicle was blown over by strong winds, and unfortunately 2 people died on that accident. And I wish not to get onto the airwaves and report about anything remotely close to that. It is for that reason that we are urging you as a road user to be extra vigilant, and if possible, rather stay at home and avoid being on the roads altogether.
The National Health Department says there is no need for the public to be concerned about the Mpox outbreak being declared a public health emergency. This after the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention declared the outbreak a public health emergency on the continent. Department spokesperson Foster Mohale says the situation in the country is under control.
We are working with a number of stakeholders, including the Border Management Authority, which is an entity of government which is responsible for looking after the borders for all people who are coming to the country. Then they are also going to intensify the screening at the port of entry, especially zooming into people who are coming from countries currently battling the outbreak of this infectious disease. So we are working with a number of stakeholders in order to ensure that we protect South Africans against this.
And lastly, looking further afield, talks are due to begin later today to try to end the civil war in Sudan, which has claimed thousands of lives and driven millions from their homes. The gathering in Switzerland will be after almost a year and a half of brutal civil conflict between the Sudanese army and the RSF forces. The BBC's Imogen Folks reports.
The Sudanese government objects to the presence of the United Arab Emirates as an observer, accusing the UAE of backing the other side. But the United States, which is sponsoring the talks, believes the presence of both the UAE and Egypt is crucial to help ensure any agreed ceasefire actually holds. Even if one side doesn't show up, the diplomats and aid officials gathering in Switzerland hope to make progress on access for humanitarian supplies and perhaps on what a ceasefire agreement might eventually look like.
Recapping the top story for this hour, Rise Mzansi says a shortage of detectives in South Africa should be a cause of concern for all citizens. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SAfm News, I'm Eva Chipa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a code today, SMS CAR to 43187. So you think your older car doesn't need insurance, but what if your car accidentally caused damage to someone else's expensive car? Outsurance Essential is affordable insurance for older cars, giving you up to 1 million rand liability cover and loads more, plus claims are paid in cash, so you can use your own panel beater. Outsurance Essential is priced for cars older than 5 years, valued under 125,000 and not financed. SMS CAR to 43187 or call 08600 60,000 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply online. Standard rates apply.
The Talking Point on SAfm. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
When I was barely 5 years old, my family left Ghana as political refugees and we were relocated to the US, which is where we lived until I was a teenager. The culture was new and strange to us, so adjusting to life in America wasn't easy. The culture was new, but our parents helped us focus on a twofold agenda. One, to learn English, and two, to make sure we succeeded at school. But to most people, we were just those strange Africans whose names were hard to pronounce. Some people were downright mean to us, calling us strange names such as African slaves. And in addition to being ridiculed for where I come from, I was also ridiculed because, according to the classmates in school, they believed I had a really deep voice. Anytime I would raise my hand to answer a question, somebody would invariably laugh and ask, was that a man or a boy who had just spoken? And as a result, I stopped raising my hand. Even if I knew the answer to a question in class, I refused to raise my hand because I was afraid of the ridicule. Eventually, I took this behavior home and I stopped talking altogether. It didn't take long for my parents to notice the change in my behavior. And one day my father confronted me to ask why I had become so quiet. After a little prodding, I confessed to him that I had stopped talking because people were ridiculing the sound of my voice. In consoling me, he said something that has stuck with me ever since. He said, "Don't let people steal your voice. Your voice is your power." I really think that experience started my love affair with the idea of finding my voice and helping other women find the same. As I reflect on that experience, it helps me understand why I dream of a world where the voices of women and girls are heard at every leadership table. So I want to offer 2 pieces of advice. To those of you who are fathers, I want to encourage you to be a committed and loving father. Interestingly enough, statistics will show you when you profile the lives of women leaders that most of the most influential women leaders in the world grew up with strong fathers who affirmed them and helped them form a positive image of themselves. I also want to encourage you to be a source of encouragement for other women in your life. Be a source of encouragement to your female friends and colleagues. Help and support their growth. Because when you encourage and support women, the truth is they will support you too. Ask any pastor or politician, and they'll tell you how invaluable the support of women is to their success. Even the biblical Jesus had a company of women who supported them, supported his ministry and supported his cause. And I'm sure he gained that support because he first sowed the seeds of encouragement in their lives. Men and women of Africa need each other, perhaps now more than ever. Our continent can only be transformed when we have women working together and in partnership with men. And I hope that happens within my lifetime.
That's very powerful, actually. I like